It's Wednesday, and welcome to the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. Of course, you can listen on the MixLR app at americanexperiment.org. You can watch it at MN Think Tank on X and on YouTube and Facebook as well. Go to Center of the American Experiment or my personal pages, the Jon Justice pages, Jon, and you can watch there as well. In studio today, we have Devin, who's running the board. Producer Devin. Isaac has parked himself over with Grogu on the couch this morning as we hand the show over to Devin, and he takes over in producing the show on a daily basis. And I'm so thankful that you are all with the show today. If you want to leave a comment at any point throughout today's broadcast, you can do so by calling the Blaster line. That number is 612-584-4565, 612-584-4565. And you can also email john.justice@americanexperiment.org. So on the show today, we have the continuing adventures of Horny Her and the St. Paul Police Chief. Text messages have been released from Cooley Her. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're juicy. So we'll dive into that just after 7 o'clock today. Also, joining us in studio, very excited, and this came as a recommendation from a friend of the show, a social media influencer heavily involved in, well, trying to make Minneapolis vibrant again. If you're on X, you're probably following her already. Becca Thompson will be joining us coming up at 7:30 today. Looking forward to talking with her about the Minneapolis City Council. We'll dive into some of the renewed controversy surrounding boys playing in girls' sports, the WNBA as well. Also, we have more paid family medical leave news to get to. People are not getting their checks. They're taking time off. They're enjoying their time off, but unfortunately, they're not receiving their checks in the mail, which is causing quite a bit of frustration on their part. So we'll dive into that just after 8 o'clock today. I want to start here, though. So we shop at Walmart quite a bit. Hands up. You guys shop at Walmart? Yeah, Devin shops at Walmart. Sam's Club? Either of you? Sam's Club? No, I don't do Sam's Club either. I think Melinda goes to Sam's Club. I couldn't tell you the last time. I don't know if I've ever been in a Sam's Club, for crying out loud. You know me, I'm partial to Costco. But Walmart and Sam's Club, they've settled claims that they shared customers' personal shopping information with third-party advertising companies without consent. Now, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up, not just because of the story. But the settlement totaling almost $1 million, $908,815, it resolves allegations that Walmart used tracking tools to collect and disclose confidential data. The agreement includes a restitution fund for eligible customers. So kind of like with what happened with Facebook when they were sharing information. I think I got a check in the mail for like $350 or something like that. I went ahead and, it was barely worth the amount of effort that I put in to actually be a part of that class action lawsuit against Meta and Facebook. So this is very similar. If you shop at Walmart, you could be a part of this lawsuit and actually receive some compensation. It's requiring Walmart to comply with privacy laws. Los Angeles County officials emphasized the importance of protecting consumer data, holding businesses accountable for safeguarding personal information. Listen, I agree with that, right? I don't want my personal information being shared with other people. We're all worried about privacy. That being said, I see stories like this, and I kind of laugh because, how many circumstances are there of places that we shop that are doing exactly the same thing? They simply aren't being called out for it at all. But there's another reason why I bring this up, though. So the settlement creates a $318,815 restitution fund for eligible customers who visited Walmart's website between January 1st and May 20th. That was January 1st of 2020 and May 20th of 2024. And whose personal purchase information was allegedly collected by third parties. So I suppose that if you go and sign up to get this restitution, whatever you receive is going to be based off of how many other individuals decided they wanted to go and try to get at this money as well. Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis emphasized that companies should not treat customers' personal information as a source of profit. and that companies collecting consumer data have a responsibility to protect it, not exploit it for profit without consent. So you may be going, John, why in the heck are you bringing this up on a Wednesday morning? Well, because as I'm reading this, doing my prep yesterday, I'm thinking, listen, if we can do this, like if we can sue Walmart, if Walmart can be sued for sharing personal data and you can receive money in return, you know, as restitution because they've been found guilty of sharing that personal information and data, can't we all collectively, and I know I'm not the first person to suggest this, but can't we all collectively as a state file a class action lawsuit against Governor Jim Walz, Thief Ellison, and the DFL for allowing the fraudsters to steal billions of dollars from us? Now, it's not really realistic because when you think about it, well, where's the money going to come from? Well, you'd have to claw back the money from the fraudsters in the first place, which, as we've talked about in numerous stories on the show, is an incredibly difficult thing to do. My fear is that if we actually were successful in filing a class action lawsuit for allowing the fraudsters to steal billions of our taxpayer dollars, and we were to get a check payment restitution back to us, it's probably just going to be our tax money handed back to us in the first place. In the first place, because where else are they going to pull the money from? I suppose Governor Jim Walz could tap into his Chinese bank account. I'm just assuming he has one. I don't. Do they have bank accounts in China? How does that work? Isaac, did you want to chime in on this from the sofa, from the non-lit sofa on the other side of the room? Do you have a comment on Chinese bank accounts?
I'm chilling. I don't need the camera on me.
Okay.
I've remained faceless. No, they do not, I bet. It's all government owned.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would think that you wouldn't be allowed to have a bank account or a savings account.
But we really should ask Tim Walz if he has a bank account over there.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I wonder if he has it wouldn't be I guess it would be an offshore account at the end of the day, but yeah. I'm sure he's got a lot of money stashed away for his lavish vacations with his wife to China and Tiananmen Square.
I hear it's beautiful in the spring.
All right, you go back to the dark in your laptop. Nice to hear from you this morning. Chiming in from the darkened part of the room. I have this story for Monday. I didn't get a chance to get to it, and I figured, hey, you know what? We'll toss it in the mix as we kick off a Wednesday show. We are going to get you up to speed on what's happening with Iran. Continue my continued journey to try to figure out what is going on with our ammunition supplies as that narrative continues regarding the war in Iran, and I have several audio clips to share with you. There was also an alleged another assassination attempt or planning for an assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. So I will get you up to speed on that coming up in just a moment here on the show. But let me go here. This is the ultimate get off my lawn taken to the extreme. I had mentioned this when we were talking with Andrew Langer on Monday morning. But a Minnesota man is facing charges after he allegedly used a spike trap to deter children from biking across his lawn. Kyle James Steffen, 38 years old. I would have expected this from an individual who was 83 years old, less from a 38-year-old. Although, as you get older, you will find out. Because there's levels. Like when you grow up as a kid, you hate mowing the lawn. You don't care what lawns look like, right? And then as you get older, suddenly that concern about your lawn grows and grows, and you want a nice-looking, clean lawn. And then you eventually reach a level and an age of, hey, get off my lawn because you're putting steps on my lawn. No, I've never gotten quite that far. But again, I would expect this coming from an 83-year-old, not a 38-year-old of Wyoming. He has been charged, though, in Chisago. Anybody? Shy? I got it right? Yeah. If I don't, somebody will just correct me on the blaster line, 612-584-4565. So a Chisago County District Court earlier this week with one count of setting up a spring gun / pitfall / deadfall / snare trap. It's his own lawn. Can he not put whatever he wants on his own lawn? It's his property. According to the criminal complaint, the Wyoming Police Department received a report of spikes being laid in a yard near Goodview Park on April 28th. The woman had also told police that a man nearby the home had been yelling at her children to stay out of his yard. Once at the home, officers saw the wide piece of plastic set in the grass with 43-inch screws sticking straight up from it, according to the complaint. Again, it's his lawn. He can do whatever he wants with it. Officers also saw bike tracks going from the Goodview Avenue into the yard as a shortcut into the park and determined the device was meant to deter children from traveling that way. Okay, so he could have put like a block up, right? Just put up a fence. Would that have made a difference? I mean, I guess the spikes is dangerous. Snare, can't do that. But he shouldn't have been able to put something up there. Just took it to the extreme. Officers identified Stefan as the homeowner. He admitted to placing the device on his lawn to keep kids away and stated that they continued to bike through his lawn despite the trap and him yelling hundreds of times, according to the complaint. Stefan also told police that the device had not injured anyone, according to the state charges. He is due back in court later this month. I don't know. I've got a bit of an issue on this. I think he should be allowed to put spikes on his lawn if he wants. Go ahead and turn Isaac's mic back on again. He's
100%.
Yeah, it's his lawn.
I thought this was America.
It's his lawn. Okay, so thumbs up from you. He should be from Isaac. Devin, should he be able to?
I'll give him a thumbs up.
Okay.
It's his private property.
Yeah, seriously.
I thought we believed in private property in this country.
So is it the intent then? Is that the case? Is that because he put spikes on his lawn with the intent to go and harm the children that they ended up charging him? Like I said, let's say he just got a log. What if he just took a log and set it on that trail that the kids had made through his yard? Is he still going to go and get charged?
What was the wording? Because did he put it there to harm the kids or keep them away?
So the charge was setting a spring gun / pitfall / deadfall / snare trap. Okay, so it must have been less about him being in his yard and more about the device in which he used, obviously. But what if you're in a somewhat, rural area and there's bears and you set up a bear trap in your yard? I mean, that's a snare trap. Can you not? I suppose there's a whole other set of laws when it comes to trapping animals. You probably can't set bear traps anyways.
Right. And they really get, they really prevent, or they really get look down upon children traps.
Yeah.
They don't like those.
No. Pitfall, deadfall. What's a deadfall?
I don't know. But spring gun sounds not great either.
No, that doesn't sound good either. All right, let's go to the blaster line. 612-584-4565. Friend of the show, Ron, wants to chime in on this.
Hi, John. Regarding the spike thing, I did the same thing on my property because people were driving across my grass to get down toward the river that is on my property. And, I took out about a half a dozen sets of tires on a bunch of kids' cars. What was funny is my wife ran into one of them while they were at Walmart getting their tires replaced.
Oh.
So we had a good laugh. And it was effective, by the way. That was an effective deterrent. It only happened once, and they never did it again.
Yeah, it has to be the setting of a trap, regardless of where it is. But I still take issue with the fact that it was on his lawn and he should be allowed to go and do what he wants to do. If you want to chime in on this, again, 612-584-4565. We're going to move on to more pressing matters. I didn't expect this was going to spark so much conversation. You can also email jon.justice@americanexperiment.org. Let's go and talk to Alex, who apparently used to work in law enforcement.
Good morning, John. I used to work in law enforcement, and I could 90% of the time, if not more, there's always way more to the story than what the media is letting you know. But you probably know that. But this is one of those cases. There's probably way more to the story because there's a lot of things that aren't adding up.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Maybe it's the fact that he admitted this was the case. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he took it a bridge too far because he was honest about what he was attempting to do in trying to harm
John,
children.
you may want to keep this article for Freedom Friday. This is Max Reimer's area. He may have some information for you. It is Chisago.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification on that. Yeah, maybe Max knows this guy. Maybe Max urged him to go. I probably shouldn't do that. I probably shouldn't make claims that are completely, totally bogus, especially for an individual that's serving in a position of power in office. All right. You can leave a comment on X if you follow me at Jon, Jon Justice. Again, Jon.Justice at AmericanExperiment.org. And leave us a blast on the blaster line, 612-584-4565. All right, coming up. Has the U.S. gone and used virtually all of its long-range precision missiles during the Iran war? I continue to see these stories on a daily basis, and I don't know what the truth is, because you read it and it sounds like, yes, we've gone and depleted our stockpiles. We're running out of ammunition. But then when you get further into the story, we're talking anonymous sources, and then you get the coded language of maybe we have, maybe we haven't, and if we do, this is what can happen. So I'm going to break it all down. I have audio from President Donald Trump talking about the next phase of what's been going on in attempting to reach some sort of deal with Iran. Also, the individual who was scoping out one of Donald Trump's golf courses that he would be playing at, with concerns because the individual was actually carrying around firearms at the time. So that's coming up on the show. We'll get back to more of your thoughts from the blaster line, 612-584-4565. And again, you can email Jon.Justice at AmericanExperiment.org. Now, here is more commentary from Center of the American Experiment, including from the American Experiment podcast with Grace Keating and Catherine Hinderrocker. In a few of these clips, you're going to hear from a lawyer in the Upper Midwest Law Center with some recent concerns and what the Upper Midwest Law Center has been involved in as of late.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There is certainly a culture at the City Council and at the Mayor's office, again, over the last 10 years, that has just not been willing to hire police officers. And we have seen rhetoric and action that has very much been about defunding the police. We filed a petition called a writ of mandamus, which is basically a Latin word for we command, where we're asking the court to hold the mayor to his duty and hire those police officers. And we have tried to detail in our court papers the real world effect this has on people, including our brave clients who've come forward and put their name on court papers and who've experienced everything from bullet holes in their houses to family members who've been struck by a vehicle and in a hit and run, never solved, to personal vandalism at their homes and property where they've had property stolen, to murder in their neighborhoods where they don't feel safe, they don't feel protected, they literally feel they cannot go out at night. Because we challenged it on behalf of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, and we said this is a violation of the single subject and title clause of the Minnesota Constitution. We are challenging this one section on behalf of our clients, the binary trigger clause, which had to do with how you define a trigger that can, with one pull, fire off multiple shots.
And that's just mashed into this 1,400-page thing, right?
Yes, that covers everything from health, higher education, firearms, energy, agriculture, human services, health, and paid leave. Not a single subject. The court in August of 2025 struck down the bill and severed basically one provision relating to the binary triggers. Judge Castro had some interesting words for this, and he said, out of respect for precedent favoring severance, I'm just going to strike down the binary trigger amendment. But then he says, quote, make no mistake, during the late hours of May 19, 2024, lawmaking did not occur within the framework of the Constitution. This court respectfully suggests that if there has ever been a bill without a common theme and where all bounds of reason and restraint seem to have been abandoned, this is it.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's a Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment. The blaster line is 612-584-4565. Got a lot of comments that have been rolling in based off the previous story of a guy who had basically set up a trap on his lawn in order to stop kids from bicycling over his yard. And now he's facing charges, which kind of brings up the question of whether or not this guy had the right to go and put what he wants on his lawn, regardless of the reason. Let's get to a few of your thoughts from the blaster line at 612-584-4565. We'll hear from friend of the show, Brian.
Morning, John. With regards to the trap, I think it's more the potential for the kids can get hurt if they fall on the screws. I like your idea of putting a log across it. That makes more sense. But I think the potential for kids to get hurt by the screws makes it more of a problem area. So, have a good day.
Well, and again, not to wipe out too hard on this, but in my mind, it also raises the question of, well, what if you have something else that's dangerous in your yard? Is it still just about intent? I mean, what if you've got a bunch of branches that fell, and if kids had gone through the yard and they fell on those, are you going to end up being, liable for that? And as I begin to say it out loud, I realize, yeah, you probably are going to end up being held accountable if that were to happen. Let's go and hear from Michael, who left us a blast this morning on the Jon Justice Show. If it wants to cooperate.
Yeah, I believe it was back in the 1930s when it was outlawed to booby trap your property. Somebody took a 410 and wired up his barn door because somebody kept breaking into his barn, and a kid died. But it might fall under that category.
I like the and a kid died, so maybe that's the reason why. It happens when you go and booby trap your barn door. Sometimes
natural selection.
Children just die.
That's what that was.
You know what? We need to get back to a place where it's your property. If you own the property, you can do what you want on the property. If somebody comes on your property, that's what I thought growing up. When I was growing up, I always assumed that if I went on somebody else's property, they had every right to pull out a gun and shoot me. That's always what I assumed as a kid. It's a shotgun blast to the body part of their choice because I came onto their lawn. That's how, and that's what, when you were a kid, that's what made it risky. Like when you were going to go across somebody's lawn because you didn't know what could happen. Because in the back of my mind, I thought that dude's got a right to do whatever he wants. If he wants to set up a trap.
It sounds like that law was passed in the FDR days of massive government.
Yeah, but the world that we live in now, that might have been the case. The ebb and flow. So originally you had every right to go and defend your property in any way that you saw fit. And it's the same thing. Like if a burglar came into your house. I mean, definitely if a burglar came into your house. Maybe my thought of going across somebody's lawn as a kid and then being shot, maybe that's a bit extreme. But certainly if somebody were to, break into your home, the assumption was always, you break in, I'm going to shoot you. I have a right to shoot you or stab you, or cut off a limb, whatever. You came into my house, you can't do that. And of course, now, you do that and you're the one that's going to end up being locked up behind bars. What is this world coming to? That's the problem. This guy should have a right to booby trap his lawn, and those kids should stay off of it because I bet he worked hard to keep his lawn looking good. Stupid children. Anyway, okay. Before we talk the Iran war, I want to remind you that there's an amazing program available to you right now that you need to take advantage of. It's helped me. It's benefited me. It's absolutely changed my life. Because for many of us, right, as you get older, you put on the weight, and it's harder to go and lose that weight. And then you do lose the weight, and all the weight just comes back. So you go and you try to lose the weight again, and then you bring even more weight back on when you're done. If that's been your life, the NutraWave program is absolutely built for you. It all stops today. All you have to do is make a simple phone call, like a friend of the show did, who emailed me this morning. She's going to go and check out Dr. Bob and this amazing program. And I'm really excited for her to go on her own weight loss journey because it's made all the difference for me. I've lost 22 pounds on this program. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to start another round of this program later on this week because NutraWave turns on the fat burning and then reignites your energy. It's all natural. There's no pills. There's no shots, which means there's absolutely no excuses for you not to take advantage of this program. And just through the course of the program, it actually goes and it changes your relationship with food. It's not even a part of the process. It just happens naturally through the course of going through the program and losing the weight. And you lose the weight so quickly that you end up becoming incredibly encouraged to stick with it. That's what I love about the program. 31,000 people across the metro have tried everything else, and they've had success just like I did. NutraWave is where they got their life back and where I got mine back. So right now, there's a limited spaces available where you can take advantage of this amazing offer. Call today to 952-952-8685, and you're going to get a free Truth Metabolic Session. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know about where your body's at right now and how much weight that you should lose based off of your age and your body type. And you're going to get a free red light therapy session. We're talking an almost $300 value, completely free, just by going and finding out the details of this amazing program. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain except the weight. So when the slots are gone, they're gone. So call today, 952-952-8685. 952-952-8685, or go to NutraWave.us, NutriWave.us. No pills, no shots, just results. Trust me, there's no other program like this. Now, results may vary. NutraWave is not a medical treatment. Consult your physician before starting any weight loss program.
If they back out again, they're going to get hit really hard. You know, they know that. They understand that. I have no choice. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. It's not like, gee, let's, think about something else. No, it should have been done by many presidents over many years, and it wasn't. And I'm doing it. Obama was taken to the cleaners. He thought he could bribe his way out. He gave them billions, tens of billions of dollars, so stupidly. $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, on a Boeing 757, an airplane loaded up with cash. They probably looked at it. They said, you got to be kidding. No, you can't bribe your way out. All you can do is fight your way out. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be talking if we weren't doing what we're doing. We hit them very, very hard, but the hard hit is yet to come, and hopefully we won't have to use it. I hope we won't have to. We're having very good discussions. They don't like to admit that, but it's a little bit disconcerting. You tell people like you, we're having wonderful discussions, and then some guy will come out of Iran and say, we have not met, we have not, it's just such a lie. All day long, you understand, it's just incredible. They'll say, we didn't talk about nuclear. Well, what do we talk about? We're sitting there twiddling our thumbs, right? So, but it doesn't matter, that's talk. The only thing that matters is action, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. If they don't make a deal, it's going to be too bad.
That was President Donald Trump talking with Fox News yesterday. Regarding the latest efforts to bring Iran to some sort of deal. Earlier in the week, President Donald Trump, during a White House press conference, had this to say.
American people were wondering what has changed this time. Why should it be any different?
Well, you don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to maybe get something, but I want to give them every last chance before decapitation. Very tough to do what we have planned, still planned. We'll see what happens. But it's a very, very tough thing to do. I think I'm very proud of the fact that I'll give people a chance. This is a big move. To do an attack that big on a country, I'd rather not do it. Now, we've already, through lots of large attacks, but they were normal large. Hopefully they'll come to their senses, because what happened cannot have a nuclear weapon.
So the U.S., according to a story this morning out of Newsmax, has used nearly all of its long-range precision missiles during the 5-month war with Iran. And I've been trying to get to the truth of this since this first narrative emerged. because I have a lot of questions involved. First off, who would be who are the individuals that have the firsthand information and knowledge that we would be at a point where we have depleted these necessary missiles? What would be the purpose for putting that information out there beyond making President Donald Trump look bad? And I'll get to more of that in just a moment. And also, is this a matter of the number of missiles that we have within our arsenal getting to a level that we typically don't want it to get? For example, like when I talk to my boys about saving money, I usually give them like a dollar amount. I say, listen, this is how much money that I would advise you to keep in the bank at any length of time. And if you go below that, you want to make sure that you wait a couple of, paycheck cycles to get it back to where it needs to be. Don't spend beyond that while you're also saving. So that's the other question that I have. Is this just a matter of percentages that we're depleting our stockpiles of missiles to a point where this is not where we want it to be? Now, there's some further details in the story that may lend some evidence as to why individuals may be leaking this information. But while the U.S. has been able to replenish supplies from other locations, the drawdown, they say, has limited the military's ability to respond to a crisis that may take place in another location as well.
Morning, John. If our weapon stockpile is at that low after what we did in Iran, a small country like that, we have to look at why. I don't think we are. It's a small country, and we're prepared for a world war. So why is it so low in a stockpile? Maybe a previous administration was getting rid of all our munitions? Could be.
Well, in the absence of evidence relating to that, I'm reluctant to take it that far. I'm going to push back a little bit, though, and, Iran's not a small country. If you look at the total size of Iran, reminds me quite a bit of Minnesota. I'll explain in just a moment. But if you look at the size of Iran, it's a third the size of the United States of America. But kind of like Minnesota is laid out, you have these very concentrated areas of population, right, with an area that with the rest of the land being, essentially mountainous, desert, and rural. I guess Iran has its own version of rocks and cows. I guess that's what I'm trying to what I'm trying to say. But with that, you have their military power is spread throughout a large country, which speaks to the difficulty in rooting out, as we talked about with Senate candidate Tom Weiler on Monday's show, which is a fantastic conversation with Tom, specifically about this and his insight from his military background regarding the size of Iran and how difficult it is to go and root out their military when it is divided up the way that it is. So let's go back to the blaster line, 612-584-4565.
If the military stockpile on long-range missiles was low, which it's not, you and I would not know about it.
Okay, so the friend of the show has inside information, apparently, because she knows it's not. That makes me feel better. No, I appreciate you leaving a comment. If you want to email, too, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. And again, the blaster line is 612-584-4565. So where is all this coming from? According to this recent story from Newsmax, it's coming from two different sources. They actually have a few others in here, and they're all anonymous, which, again, puts a big question mark on the entire narrative, in my opinion. The degree to which the military is running out of these precision strike missiles had not previously been reported. The dramatic rundown, the article goes on to say, in precision long-range missiles means that President Donald Trump may have to rely on more riskier piloted bombing missions if he relaunches large-scale attacks on Iran. You see, and what I don't like about the narrative and why I throw a huge question mark on it is that we haven't talked about this on the show, but apparently details have emerged that somebody within the Trump administration sought to undermine Trump and the strike that he was going to conduct this past weekend to try to bring the Iranian regime to its knees to come to an agreement. And that may have been one of the reasons why they halted that military strike, because somebody in the administration had leaked out the plans to Iran. So if that's happening then, it's a lot less egregious for somebody to go and start spreading a narrative that, we're running out of ammunition, and that's the real reason why President Donald Trump didn't go and launch this renewed kinetic action. The sources declined to say how many of each munition the U.S. has left. 3 people familiar with the matter expressed worry that the falling missile supplies could limit the U.S.'s ability to deter adversaries, including Russia and China. The sources interviewed for the story spoke on a condition of anonymity. Now, when asked for comment about the stockpile data, the White House issued a statement from Trump saying that the U.S. had far more munitions than anyone in the world and far more than we need. Our defense companies are, at this moment, making more munitions than they have ever made before, in addition to expanding their plants and equipment at record levels. Analysts agree that certain munitions, including artillery shells and several types of missiles, are being produced at record levels, but caution that supplies might fall short of what is needed for a prolonged war. This is buried towards the end of the piece, and it's probably one of the most relevant comments in the article as to what is really happening, leaning into my suspicions that these are individuals who may have some connections to the White House, but ultimately are looking to feed anti-Trump narratives and give the news media a new angle on which to cover what's been taking place in Iran, because they've clearly gotten bored with talking about it, even though the actions are continuing. So individuals going and putting out these types of concerns are really helping the media and those anti-Trump narratives. Now, responding to a request for comment, Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said, "Doing nothing with my fingers, America's military is the most powerful in the world and has everything it needs to execute at the time and place of the president's choosing. We have executed multiple successful operations across combatant commands while ensuring the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people and interests." The supply figures have circulated inside the federal government for the last week during the tense conversations inside the Trump administration about how much longer the U.S. can continue striking Iran without drawing down the stockpile levels that would limit the ability to respond to a crisis elsewhere. I go back to my initial comments on this when we first saw this narrative emerge. And again, I think it's people that like to hear themselves talk, that are feeding the media, desperate to go and cover a different angle on all of this and go and make Trump look bad. We've obviously used a lot of our weaponry and our, arsenal of missiles in our attacks on Iran. I don't think anybody is disputing that. But this just seems like an extension of that Trump derangement syndrome and individuals even inside the administration that are seeking to make the president look bad. 612-584-4565. We'll get to the latest security scare for Trump in just a moment. I want to share with you this clip, though. This is Mike Pence talking with Fox News and comments regarding what he believes Trump should do when it comes to Iran that I found kind of surprising coming from Mike Pence.
Respond quickly. I want to ask you about Iran. Yeah. We had a Fox poll that came out about 2 weeks ago. We asked the question on the ultimate outcome with Iran, the U.S. will reach what? Good deal, bad deal, or no deal? And 48% said no deal. What's your view?
Well, I have more confidence in President Trump than that. And I think the Iranians should be very wary in this moment. Look, I strongly supported the president's decision to use military force last year and this year, striking Iran really for the first time in 47 years after they've waged a continuous war against the United States and the West all those years. But honestly, I think the president, after that first month where our military did a brilliant job taking down 13,000 military sites, I think the president has tried to create room for diplomacy. He's done that again over this weekend, even as we were marshaling military assets across the region. But I honestly think that the time has come for the President of the United States to unleash the armed forces of the United States, strike the remaining nuclear facilities in Iran, take down and degrade their ability to project force, not only in the Strait, but across the region. Look, one does not make peace with one's enemy. one makes peace with one's defeated enemy. And given their posture and their attitudes and even denying that negotiations are happening,
That's a Mike Pence that I can get behind, by the way. And just pure speculation, obviously, on my part. But the sense that I get of what's happening is the administration has grown impatient and has been impatient for a while now. They're tired of the games that the Iranian regime is playing. We talked earlier in the week about the fact that a lot of commentary is swirling around Iran trying to draw out these negotiation efforts until October, where they'll have more leverage that close to the midterm elections, believing that President Donald Trump would go and agree to lesser terms than what the Trump administration has been offering the leaders in Tehran up until this point. What I think is happening right now is that because of this potential leak of this plan that was supposed to take place over the weekend, we're probably going to end up launching another final major strike, much in the same way that Mike Pence laid out, and we're not going to know ahead of time. It's just going to happen. That's my guess about where all this is going currently. I mean, it could even happen as soon as this weekend. So something we'll certainly be keeping an eye on. Along with this as well, President Donald Trump responded to the latest potential threat against his life, keeping with the theme of Trump here on the Jon Justice Show, with a notably upbeat reaction on his first public comments about the incident. I'll play you what Trump had to say here in just a moment. But the Secret Service is investigating whether an armed man outside of Trump's National Golf Club in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, on Sunday intended to harm the president. This 38-year-old named Janine John Talley. Does anybody know any dudes named Janine? No, Isaac. No, Janine. No dude.
Sounds
no,
like a
no,
liberal. Though.
No male friends named Janine. No. Devin, any male friends named Janine?
I can't think of any.
Yeah, and and from you, I would expect that because I know that sometimes Devin can be masculine and feminine. I think I dated a Devin once, or at least I wanted to. I think that's what it was. My recollection is she was pretty hot too, but it was a long time ago, and I could be getting that wrong. And I just think that's weird that I'm talking about that with another Devin right to my right. That's very strange. I'm going to get back to the story 100%. Now. Yeah, okay. Is everybody creeped out, right? Yep. Everybody properly creeped out this morning on a Wednesday? 100%. All right. Sorry about that, Devin. You're a good man. Good man.
Keyword man.
Man. Janine John Talley, 38, was arrested after FBI agents allegedly found him carrying a 16-round magazine in his pocket. According to the L.A. County Sheriff's Department, Talley was also seen taking photographs and videos near the property. If investigators determined that Talley was targeting Trump, it would mark the third widely reported threat involving the president this year. So let's go to the president's comments on the matter, speaking with Fox News.
There was a threat. There was a man who was arrested, seemed to be heavily armed near the property here on Sunday. It's an ongoing concern, sir. Talk about that for briefly, if we can.
Well, the only thing I get a little solace from is they say only consequential presidents. And I am definitely consequential. I mean, if you look at the economy, if you look at what's happening, Iran, as an example, will never have a nuclear weapon. They already can't, but it's going to be formal. The strait's going to be open very soon, or they're going to get hit very hard, and then the strait's going to be open. And we were going to a tremendous attack, the biggest since World War II. And they called me and said, very politely, please, can we talk? Can we talk? They didn't want. And I said, yes, we can talk. Let's get it done. Finally, let's get it done. This should have been done by other presidents for 50 years. You know, you keep hearing 47, but that's been for 3 years now. It's been over 50 years. Other presidents or other countries should have been able to do this. And I did something that I had to do, because if they had a nuclear weapon, this whole world would be a different place.
If they back out again, are they done?
Well, if they back out again, they're going to get hit really hard. You know, they know that. They understand that. I have no choice. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. It's not like, gee, let's, think about something else. No, it should have been done by many presidents over many years, and it wasn't. And I'm doing it. Obama was taken to the cleaners. He thought he could bribe his way out. He gave them billions, tens of billions of dollars, so stupidly. $1.7 billion in cash.
And you'd heard that those previous comments from Trump a little earlier this hour. So again, this particular incident, if it turns out this dude named Janine was looking to target Trump, I mean, you're looking at you had the fatal shooting of an armed individual carrying a shotgun and a gas canister near Mar-a-Lago, the arrest of the man who breached the security at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, of course, the attempted assassination at the campaign rally in Butler. The bottom line is on this whole thing, people have been radicalized by Democrats. End of story. That's it. It's one of the conversations that we're not allowed to have in the country, but it's the truth. Individuals have been radicalized over and over again by the inflammatory rhetoric coming from prominent Democrats, including Governor Tim Walz, including Thief Ellison, and they've taken to wanting to harm the president multiple times, specifically because of the direct correlation over that inflammatory rhetoric and the individuals now that feel like the only solution is to go and harm President Donald Trump. And it's a conversation that we need to have. But again, we're not allowed to go and have those conversations right now. All right, coming up, a tragedy. Family confirms the identity of the In-N-Out associate killed during Saturday's shooting. Also, the individual who pulled his own firearm in defense of those patrons at that In-N-Out speaks to local media. You're probably not seeing this unless you're on social media, because it's not a story that media is going to want to widely report on because it's a good guy with a gun. I'll share that audio with you coming up in just a moment on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
What's that thing that Keith Ellison said in the December 2021 meeting with fraudsters? Money is freedom. Money is power. Yeah, right? I mean, that's happening in Minnesota, and you don't just see it with public sector unions generally, but I mean, look at the teachers union. It is like cartel levels of control that they hold over the DFL here in Minnesota. So even if there were some DFL legislators who say wanted school choice and thought it was a great policy, the teachers union is so against it and so against any meaningful reform that they really can't come out and support it because they're being funded, their campaigns are being run by the union.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Minnesota is the second most generous state in the nation, spending $46,000 on public welfare per person in poverty in 2023. Second most generous.
Just really quick, if those people in poverty had the $46,000, they wouldn't be in poverty.
So I just would like to quickly point out
checks. Quickly point out that the government is once again like the least efficient organization in the world.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank. Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Let's go back to the blaster line.
Good morning, John. Victor from Bloomington here. Now, I know the joke is just sitting out there, but was that a magazine in Janine's pocket, or was he just happy to teach from?
Oh, come on. I expect that kind of humor out of Isaac. Not from you, Victor. It's a Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment. Remember, you can watch at MN Think Tank, also on Facebook and YouTube at Center of the American Experiment, and my personal Facebook and YouTube pages, Jon, Jon Justice. Head on over to the website. We have merchandise available. The new Jon Justice Show logoed mugs are available. Go to the About link on the top left-hand side of the page, and you'll find the merchandise link. Also, if you go to my page, and there's a nice little pop-up there where you can also listen to the show at AmericanExperiment.org. If you go to my page, scroll down to the bottom. If you make a donation to Center of the American Experiment, you're going to get a cool Jon Justice Show embroidered black hat. My son came by yesterday. He was wearing my hat, which is a little weird. He's wearing Dad's hat. Had a lot of pride, though. Had a lot of pride in my boy. So go and make a donation. Get yourself a free hat with that donation. And we have more logoed merchandise coming very, very soon. I think we're doing some stickers, too, if I'm not mistaken. I think we are. I think that's Isaac's giving me a heads up. He's like, yeah, we are doing some stickers. They're just of Isaac's face. Nothing Jon Justice Show related apart.
Those will sell out.
Apart from.
I'll sign them for $5. I keep saying that.
Wow.
The faceless face stickers.
$5.
$5.
I could never get into. I don't think I would ever pay. No, I wouldn't. I would never pay for the signature of a celebrity or a sports personality.
Oh wow.
I would never drop money. Now, if it was, let's just say for the sake of argument, if it was like
that kind of surprises me coming from a collector like.
Well, so okay, let me
because I collect sports cards.
Okay,
I collect sports cards.
You collect sports cards.
They have a lot of autographs.
Now that's different. Now, see, I think that's different.
Okay.
I'm talking specifically about when you go to like a Comic-Con and like Mark Hamill shows up and he wants to charge like $500.
Like you stand in line with your thing.
And then you just get something. No.
There's a very select few I would do that for.
But like if I'm getting like a die-cast car and it's got Dale Jr.'s signature on it, I might pay a couple extra bucks. But at the same time, it's already Dale Jr.'s car. So I don't necessarily need the signature.
Is so cool.
Is it though? Is it still cool? Devin, her signature is still cool. Do you have signature? I know you're a big sports guy.
Still cool because without the signature, it's just another car.
Just a thing.
Yeah, but the signature gives the personal element of the athlete, celebrity, whoever.
Does it still carry the same weight as it always has? Signatures, or has that diminished?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Over time,
I think so.
I think so. They might be on the bounce back though. I know, like sports cards in general. Like,
sports cards are very in right now.
Yeah, I know that.
That collectible stuff is back in.
Yeah, Dale Jr. Actually, I'm still a Dale Jr. fan. He has his own podcast because he does NASCAR announcing and stuff now, and he was my driver back when before he retired. And he's a big. He talks about how he's a big baseball card collector. I would imagine you're probably right. I think that signatures, if they were on a downtrend, they're probably on an uptrend because I firmly believe that people are going to be seeking authenticity and that which is genuine in the rise of artificial intelligence, even though we are not guaranteed human here on the Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment. But I think people are going to want things that are real and tangible and authentic, and I think signatures come into the mix. I'll be specific. I was more just talking about going to a place. There's an actor or an actress with the booth set up, and they're charging you an exorbitant amount of money to get their signature. Nah. I'd rather have a photograph. Like, you're going to charge me that much? I'd rather have a selfie with.
I have a friend who's the exact same way.
Yeah, not Mark Hamill, because
he's like, I'd rather shake the guy's hand, say hi.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I think I'd still probably prefer an autograph. Yeah. I have no shame. I'd probably ask for an autograph.
Now, you know what? I think we all collectively
You're fascinating to talk to.
Let's go here. Shifting gears, and this is tragic. We're learning more about the victims of Saturday's mass shooting in the In-N-Out in Twin Falls. ABC 10 in Sacramento confirms that Ashley Garibay, an In-N-Out associate, was one of the three people that were killed. Just so completely and utterly senseless. Garibay lived in Stockton, traveled to help new In-N-Out locations. The location in Twin Falls opened on July 24th of this year. In a statement, her family tells ABC 10 that Garibay was a devoted daughter, sister, auntie, cousin, and friend, and that she dreamed of one day managing an In-N-Out store. The statement went on to say that Garibay was an amazing, beautiful soul who loved living life. It's just so incredibly senseless. In a statement posted on Saturday night, In-N-Out owner confirmed the associate was killed in the shooting, and a GoFundMe page has also been set up to help Garibay's family during this difficult time. In the meantime, local news talked with the fearless patriot in the Twin Falls shooting, Jordan Salinas, he went on to promote on television the Second Amendment rights, talking about the shooter's bravado and how it changed dramatically once he went and drew his firearm.
I peeked around the right-hand side of that sign closest to the road, and that's where I saw the individual with his rifle pointed at the vehicles.
Authorities believe those heroic actions drove the shooter from the scene and likely saved lives.
He seemed unusually comfortable aiming that rifle at those cars, and then as soon as some rounds started coming at him, everything changed. Immediately, all that bravado he had immediately crumbled.
This In-N-Out had opened just a week prior. The company says one of their workers was killed while caring for customers. Christopher Claunch was also killed.
Not surprised to hear his commentary of what had actually taken place. Individuals like that tend to act really brave when they're going and committing a horrible act like this. You've decided to go and take somebody else's life. Your respect of another individual's life has gone out the window, including your own. But then suddenly when you're faced with any kind of opposition to your heinous actions, you turn into an absolute coward. I wish this story was getting more attention, because it should. It is the example of a good guy with a gun, and why your Second Amendment rights are so crucial here in the United States, and also why the left continues to try to strip them away from you, because it brings about personal accountability. And they don't want that. They want to be in control. They want to be in charge. They don't want you having the ability to go and push back on individuals. You know, this person in the middle of going and committing his murderous act was ultimately a massive coward for a number of different reasons, including the fact that he just did what he did. A brave individual doesn't go and do something like this. Cowards go and do things like this. Let me go here, and I wasn't planning on going here just yet, but since I'm on this line of thinking, I want to share with you some audio that came out of St. Paul. I was going to hang on to this until our guest next hour joins us, Becca Thompson, but it seems more appropriate to go and share this with you here. So this clip was making the rounds on X yesterday. Wall Street Apes, the X account, had shared this. A resident at the St. Paul City Council meeting in Minnesota stood at the podium during this council meeting talking about our system in America of having private property needs to be abolished so that people can live in a park without being harassed. This punk is a straight-up coward. I'm going to share with you why, but first, these were the comments by this moron in St. Paul during a city council meeting.
What we're all participating in here.
And let me stop it real quick. Right at the end of the piece, you'll hear a transition to another voice of an individual who had captured the video, but then wanted to offer clarity to what this idiot was spewing in the St. Paul City Council chambers.
In here is a settler colony on stolen land. This is a government that represents the settlers and the capitalists and the other neoliberal fascists that live amongst us. Why are they brutalizing all of these innocent, beautiful people? It's crazy. I mean, I'm sure they take care of their pets at home, and they take care of their kids at home, and they kiss their, kids goodnight and all that. But what this government, what this system exists to do is to enforce private property.
Okay, let me pause it real quick. This coward might as well have been dressed up like a Muslim woman walking the streets of Somalia or Iran. I say that because he was completely shrouded in clothing. He had on this zip-up sweater jacket up to his neck. He had a face covering on, and it looked like he was wearing a flesh-colored prosthetic around his nose under the mask, and then dark sunglasses on and a beanie. Dude, you're a coward. Show your face. You want to stand up there and spew your Marxist nonsense? But so brave behind the shielding of anything that can go and identify you. Because ultimately, deep down, This lunatic knows that he's a lunatic. He knows what he's saying is ridiculous. He doesn't care because Marxists don't care. The radicals in Minneapolis and St. Paul don't care. But they're not brave souls. They're pure cowards. They hide themselves from the public because they know that what they're saying is, at the least stupid and at the most really, really radicalized, dangerous commentary. He's got his right to say it, but to stand up there and spew this nonsense, hiding his face from everybody, it goes to show that he doesn't have any conviction behind any of the garbage that you're listening to here.
And if these people think that they can just go live in the park, no. That'll bring all our property values down. That'll collapse the whole system. So what can we do besides beg and plead for a little bit of humanity? I think what we should do is take their ability away to brutalize us like this. I think we should take away the weapons from the armed group of thugs that they use to brutalize all of us.
I think the best way to address this is just ask the question, is America stolen land or conquered land? And the answer is conquered land. And in the same way, nearly all human territory has been acquired throughout all of history. The Americas were not empty or peaceful. They were occupied by hundreds of distinct peoples, nations, and empires that fought, displaced, enslaved, and absorbed one another for centuries.
It's morons like this coward that you just heard spewing this anti-property nonsense. It's morons like that end up electing St. Paul mayors like Horny Her. They're part of the problem. We have an update on the further adventures of Horny Her and the St. Paul police chief coming up on the Jon Justice Show. And welcome into Hour 2 of the Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment. Remember, you can listen at americanexperiment.org. Go to my page, make a donation, get yourself a new embroidered logoed Jon Justice Show hat. Mugs available on the merchandise site as well. And you can listen and watch at MN Think Tank on X. Also on YouTube and Facebook at Center of the American Experiment. New texts reveal that St. Paul Mayor Horny Her thought male colleagues were falling in love with her. She had a very, very high, this demisexual, self-admitted, had a very, very high opinion of herself. So we'll give you the further details on that in just a moment on the show. We have social media influencers. We talk about things relating to Minneapolis. Becca Thompson will be joining us at 7:30 this morning. This news broke overnight. Mike Lindell, amid his run for governor of Minnesota, announced that he is stepping down as the chief executive officer of his Shakopee-based MyPillow. He said, doing that thing with my fingers, today I've made one of the biggest decisions of my life. I'm stepping down as CEO of MyPillow so that I can devote 100% of my time and energy to my campaign for governor of Minnesota. Minnesota deserves my full attention, and that's exactly what I'm going to give it. I'm all in, and I can't wait to earn your vote. Okay. This reeks of desperation. You got the MyPillow giveaway challenges, and we'll get to this. It's in the story here. You have the questions over Mike Lindell's residency requirements, and this timing of stepping down as CEO of MyPillow seems to me just as a blatant attempt for Mike Lindell to try to change the topic. I said it before, I'll say it again. If he ends up being the winner in the primary next week, he's absolutely getting my vote. I will vote for him. I would vote for Devin. I would vote for Isaac. I would vote for a majority of individuals that walk through the door here at Center of the American Experiment if they're Republican and they were the GOP candidate over Amy Klobuchar. That being said, this reeks of desperation coming from Mike Lindell's campaign. And then he went on to say this, which was probably one of the stupidest things, in my opinion, he could have said. He said that the Minnesota GOP questioning his residency was a hit job. Are you trying to make it difficult for Republicans to support you? Is that your goal? Is that what you're trying to do here? Because you are. That's what's happening. Why are you making it so hard? Lindell has also reduced his ownership stake in the company to a minority share. He'll stay on as member of the board, but the CEO title goes to James Furlong, who served as the MyPillow director from 2004 and 2019. At this point in time, less than a week away from next week's primary, he should have just waited. Nobody was putting an argument out there of, you know what, I was going to go and vote for Mike Lindell, but gosh darn it, he's been running for governor and he's still CEO of MyPillow. And I love my slippers. I put my head on a MyPillow every night, but, you know, I just can't get behind him because he's still CEO. Oh, he's not CEO anymore? He's totally got my vote now. Nobody is saying that. Now, if he were to win the primary and then wanted to say, I want to focus 100% on my campaign now that I won the primary, okay, I'll give it to you. But this obviously is just a means to go, don't look at these other controversies, please, which may or may not be legitimate. No. Let's talk about in the cycle the fact that I'm no longer going to be CEO of the Minnesota-based MyPillow. Let's do that. Not to mention the fact that, I mean, as CEO, it's kind of like the cushiest job you could have with the company. Now, it has a lot of pressure. Don't misunderstand. Right? I don't want to go and diminish the role of individuals who are the heads of organizations, certainly not the one that I'm currently doing the show from either. There's a lot of pressure involved in that, I understand. But you're a leader. You delegate, right? Ultimately, it all falls on you. But if the company's running as it should, making, you know, my slippers and my pillows for people to go and walk around and sleep in comfort, if it's running the way that it should, there's not a whole lot you really need to do. Lindell told to Bring Me the News that the residency questions are a hit job from Alex Plekish, whom he called a horrible leader for the GOP. Again, Mike, if you're listening, you're not Trump. Don't be like Trump. Trump does that. We're used to Trump doing that. He'll go after members of his own party and then end up being friends with them later on. This is a different dynamic. You're talking about a state, you know, gubernatorial race, not on the national stage. So when you speak like that about current leaders within the GOP, again, are you trying to make it harder to get support? If you were to win the primary on Tuesday, you're going to want individuals like Alex Plekish and the GOP on your side. You're undermining all of that. I don't understand any of these moves. I mean, going back to the whole amnesty plan, I do not get it. What are your thoughts? Leave us a comment on the Blaster line, 612-584-4565. If comments have been rolling in.
Hey, John. Hans here. Who's voting for this MyPillow guy? Such a weirdo. Is it leftists infiltrating the party, or is it a group of diehard Minnesota GOPers? Anyways, you know what I'd buy? An autograph stack of Jon Justice notes that I see scribbling on all the time. Have a great day. Bye now.
Oh, I'll give you the stack for free. It's just over here. I have it every single day. As a matter of fact, I have underneath my printer at home, I have a bin where I put all of the paper because I use both sides of it, right? So like this, like you'll see if you're watching at MN Think Tank or on Facebook or YouTube. So like this side's still clean. So what I'll do is I'll mark it when I'm done, and then I'll save it and use it again. And then when both sides are done, I throw it in the bin. Usually I empty it out every couple of months, and the stack is like this. Like, I feel like I should do something. Like, it should be archived somewhere. Maybe I'll give it to Hans. I give it to you for free, Hans. You can have all my recycled paper. Free of charge. No, listen, I don't have a problem with anybody that's supporting Mike Lindell. I know there's a lot of people that like Mike Lindell. There's a lot of individuals out there who want somebody who's an outsider like Trump. They see Mike Lindell as that individual. They see him as being fearless, willing to call out the establishment GOP, probably get very excited, and the moves that he's making appeal to those individuals who who support him. And I have no problem with anybody that wants to go and vote for Mike Lindell in a primary. This is why we have primaries, right? I have not chosen a dog in this fight. I'll comment once we get past the primary, and I will support whomever those winners are. But I'm not making any endorsements on this show leading up to it. I never do during election cycles. But I have no problem, and I don't begrudge anybody that supports Mike Lindell, because people all have their own reasons. It's very subjective. It's very personal. And you do you. That's great if you want to throw your vote behind him. I just think these moves that he has been making are incredibly stupid, and also are undermining the efforts, were he to win the primary next week, of actually being voted in by the GOP and drumming up enthusiasm when you're going and complaining about the leaders within the GOP, like Alex Plekish, who had no choice but to go and call out the residency question. Because you know what? If they don't get that squared away between now and primary day, the questions around his residency here in Minnesota, the DFL, if Mike Lindell is the primary candidate for the GOP, they are going to make a mess of it. And it's not just me saying that either. I got an email. I'll leave it anonymous. He did not give me permission, although I get the feeling he probably would be fine with me sharing his thoughts. But since he didn't, I'll go ahead and share with you what this anonymous friend of the show shared with me. Talking about the residency question, the controversy behind it, the emailer writes, this is exactly what the DFL wants. The question of residency to hold office is fact-driven. So when you look back at Curtis Johnson and his House disqualification case that gave us Speaker Lisa Damuth, he had a driver's license and voter registration in his apartment, doing that thing with my fingers, that he never lived in. It's in Judge Castro's order. Mike Lindell may have switched his driver's license, but he didn't even have his voter registration in Minnesota. Mike Lindell was claiming that he had pay stubs showing that he was a resident of Minnesota. But about those pay stubs, the emailer says, I'm not sure how pay stubs work for addresses, or if that's even that important of a fact. If you look up some of the affidavits filed in cases that he's been involved in the past couple of years, there's at least one where he personally served at a resort in Texas. Does that mean that that's his residence? No. And there are several court filings where he says he is a Minnesota resident, but you can imagine that the very well-paid DFL lawyers will be doing a whole lot of digging, and that's not a good situation. It's not a good situation. Alex Plekish and the Minnesota GOP are not in a good situation having this come to light. Whether or not the residency question is an issue or not, Alex Plekish was absolutely correct in going and questioning it, because the DFL is going to, if he is the nominee, and it's going to be a mess. And I hope that we get a concrete answer between now and Tuesday so that voters can go and make the informed decision that they have a right to make regarding a candidate that they support. Coming up, St. Paul Mayor Horny Her, under investigation for sexual harassment allegations made by Police Chief Axel Henry. Text messages now obtained by Alpha News reveal Her's belief that men misinterpret her professional passion as romantic interest, leading her to set clear boundaries. Boy, if those are her boundaries based off the allegations around Horny Her, I think she needs to reevaluate those boundaries. The investigation includes the claims of inappropriate messages, comments about physical appearance, and altered photographs of police officials. I'll give you details on this. We'll get to more of your thoughts. Jon.Justice@AmericanExperiment.org. You can leave us a blast at 612-584-4565. Now, here is some more commentary from Center of the American Experiment and some recent guests on the show that you might have missed. If you want to watch more, head on over to the Center of the American Experiment YouTube page or AmericanExperiment.org.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
And they also state that Bach said on the telephone that her criminal defense attorney and the editor of the Star Tribune were making plans as to when to publish the article to garner the most strategic advantage.
So that's like pretty high level collusion between the Star Tribune and this woman who's sitting in a jail waiting to be sentenced for her role in the fraud scheme.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Most Minnesotans, based on our polling, would agree.
It was temporary from the beginning.
It was temporary.
Temporary COVID.
Going to people who don't need it. They can work, or they're illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Shouldn't be benefiting from the system anyway.
Yep, they're able-bodied or they're not Americans.
We're going to kind of roll through a few of the senators' opinions on why this funding is so crucial. Let's roll it.
Work reporting requirements don't work. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are forcing states to adopt these work reporting requirements so they can kick enough people off Medicaid to justify the tax cuts they gave to billionaires.
The single purpose of this is to kick people off of their health insurance.
Except to corporations and super rich donors, the only people who stand to gain from this deal.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit americanexperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Education Minnesota came in and testified against that bill.
Yep.
Even though it included public schools, and their basic thing was we are testifying against this because it'll decrease the enrollment in public schools, decrease teacher funding in public schools, and basically take money away from our teachers in public schools. And when they did that, what just became so crystal clear, and every DFL representative fell in line, repeated the same anti-Trump talking points. What stuck out to me was like, wow, you really don't care about the kids.
Nope.
You really, really don't. The only thing you're prioritizing is public school enrollment, not for the sake of we need more kids in public school because they'll get the best education. The justification was we need more kids in public school so that our teachers can get paid in public school.
Yeah, they should be happy that there's going to be more private money under this program going to schools, more money in general. But they're not, because some of it might go to private schools. Meanwhile, in other states that are run by Democrats, they did opt into this program, and their kids are going to benefit from
Virginia
it. But here
did.
in Minnesota,
New York did. Michigan, Colorado. You had these other states that are blue states that were opting into this program. And I think just the most jarring part of it was listening to these DFL representatives, this DFL testifier from Education Minnesota, and going, wow, the point is not educating our children. And that was actually from Freedom Friday here on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. And, of course, Max Reimer, who will be in this Friday as well. And we should have a full house. Isaac will be producing that morning. Devin will be producing the show Monday through Thursdays, and we should have Grace and Catherine from the American Experiment podcast, of which there is a brand new episode out today.
Unfortunately, that is the
that's
one
right.
I'm out
You're
of
not
town
here.
for.
I forgot you're not here Friday, Isaac.
I will be attending a wedding, but I'll tune in.
We'll be here in spirit. Devin will be here on
maybe
Friday.
Maybe I'll leave a blast.
You should leave a blast.
That'd be fun.
Should leave a cardboard cutout of yourself.
Fun.
Just set it over there.
I like that.
Yeah. So Devin will be here on Friday, at least for a little while. So, but we should have a full house of AK and Max Reimer here as well on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. Let's get to, before we get to the continuing adventures of St. Paul Mayor Horny Her, let's get to some of your thoughts from the blaster this morning, 612-584-4565, and we'll hear from Matthew, who left us a message.
John, good morning. Great show. Mike Lindell is the Temu version of Donald Trump. That's really all I have to say.
I like the fact that at the end of Matthew's comment, he had a little chuckle there at the end of it. At one point, are we not going to be allowed to call individuals a Temu something? Like, I'm surprised that has not been put in the penalty box of, oh, you can't say that. That's incredibly rude to call anybody a Temu anything. Let's go and hear from Kevin this morning on the blaster line.
John, as an employer, I know that your pay stub would show what state your state income tax is paid into. Your state income tax would be paid into your state of residence. Kevin's phone name, you straighten me out a little bit.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, there still are some questions. I don't think it's as definitive. And if it were, then this controversy would be over, and the controversy is not over yet. If it were simply that definitive that it was just enough to have the pay stubs be the qualifier for your residency. But thank you all for the comments to the blaster line. Again, 612-584-4565. Alpha News obtained text messages revealing that St. Paul Mayor Horny Cooley Her believed the men that she encountered through her professional and political life ended up developing romantic feelings for her. The nature of my work, doing that thing with my fingers, she says, requires a lot of love and passion. Otherwise, the work is too heavy to carry and the burden is too great. I run across this with men more frequently, but men will sometimes mistaken it for more. I think they end up falling in love with me, so I have to set very clear boundaries. Don't we all have that problem, guys? All right? Got to leave before you love me. That's a great jam, by the way. I just tell you, that is a great. Jonas Brothers and who's the other guy with that song? I always forget. It's the guy that wears marshmallow. He wears the marshmallow head. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? He has the big marshmallow head with the.
Yeah, it is Jonas Brothers and Marshmallow.
Thank you. I'm gonna listen to that on the way home. It's at the top of. I have a John's favorite playlist, which is really every playlist. That one is at the top of one of my John favorite playlists. It's a good jam. She is delusional. Getting back to the messages, they were later submitted as exhibits in support of the harassment restraining order petition filed by Yang, who alleged that Her engaged in a pattern of unwanted communications, intimidation, and interference in Yang's personal and professional life. In January of this year, a Ramsey County court referee denied Yang's petition, finding evidence did not meet the legal standard required to issue a harassment restraining order. So what it sounds like here is that with these text messages relating to Shirley Yang in the spring of 2005, while Cooley Her was serving in the Minnesota House of Representatives, this sounds like that version of the narrative that she wanted to put forward, like people just don't get my jokes with the current allegations, meaning Shirley Yang's protests of harassment was really just the fact that Shirley, even though it happens more often with men, just simply fell for Cooley Her's charms. And therefore, the unrequited love pushed her to the point where she said that she was being harassed or something. Now Her faces a separate investigation into allegations of sexual harassment following the complaint filed by St. Paul Police Chief Axel Henry. So how long until Horny Her says that, the problem? Axel's just in love with me. What can I say? I'm a magnet for men and women because I just exude this level of sexuality. Oh, my gosh. I'll tell you this much, man. Thank you, Horny Her, for providing me material. This is spectacular. I just got never a dull moment. The messages provide additional insight into the mayor's views on relationships and professional boundaries, as I was just explaining. They also, the messages also surface as competing narratives emerge about the investigation. So KSTP reported Monday night that her and Henry had long-standing disagreements over several issues before the chief filed the complaint and quoted former St. Paul City Council member who questioned whether the allegations have been overstated. And again, this goes back to the point I was just making a moment ago. So we had earlier this week what I just mentioned. We already had disagreements. We didn't agree about ICE operations, about issues regarding public safety and the police. Now it seems like her wants to inject this. And I'm just waiting for it, this. And on top of all this, Axel Henry really just had a crush on me. And why wouldn't he? I'm horny her for crying out loud. Chris Maddle, the attorney representing Henry, rejected that characterization in a post on X and reiterated his criticism in a statement to Alpha News. He said it's BS and they know it. And he used the words. A lot of expletives flying around lately. I'm not going to lie. I miss the days when we didn't curse as much in public. And that includes President Donald Trump. My father, right, taught me early and often. Move on from the profane to the profound. Often when people use that type of language, not all the time, but often when people use that kind of language, it's sort of lazy. Right? They can't really express their views. Comedians, I just don't understand it. Like, to me, comedians, when they use an abundance of profanity, it's often because their material is weak. If your material is good, you don't need to use profanity. Anyway. This is my version of putting spikes on the lawn to stop kids from riding over it. There's kids today. All their language and these attorneys. But I get it. Chris Maddle is a passionate dude, and he's upset. He said, unlike these clowns, Chief Henry has put his life on the line to protect people, and now he's putting himself out there to protect others. So what does the mayor, her, and crew do? They blame the victims. Now, last week, Alpha News reported that Mayor Herr is under investigation following the allegations by Chief Henry that she sexually harassed a subordinate city employees, including members of the St. Paul police force. Now, the allegations outlined by Chief Henry are not the only claims that have surfaced regarding her conduct, as we've been reporting on the show. Star Tribune said that a former high-ranking St. Paul police deputy told investigators shortly after Herr took office the mayor approached her in the police department's gym and the locker room area and commented on the size of her own breasts before complimenting the deputy chief's breasts. Now, see, listen, I take issue with this because if you've ever been in a locker room with a bunch of dudes, I mean, dudes do this all the time. They look at other dudes' junk and they go, man, you got some nice junk going on there, right? Doesn't compare to my junk, but you got some nice junk going on there. That never happens, by the way. And if it does, those individuals making those comments are probably not going to be back in that locker room anytime soon. Could you imagine? You're in a stall in the bathroom. Hey, what you got going on over there, buddy? Nice. It's good. You know, that's all right. Want to see what I got happening here? Normal people don't do that. The Star Tribune also reported allegations that Herr altered framed photographs of senior police officials displayed in the department offices by placing copies of her official mayoral portrait over some of the officers' faces. The newspaper further reported that Herr posted an edited image depicting a shirtless UFC fighter with the faces of St. Paul police officers, including Chief Henry, digitally superimposed onto the fighters' bodies. Separately, Care 11 reported allegations that Herr positions herself in front of police officers in the department's weight room and made sexually suggestive noises while stretching. In text messages with Yang, Herr said that she had undergone what she had described as a Akashic reading. I have no idea what that is. A-K-A-S-H-I-C. Akashic? No? Nobody? Okay. No, not just me. And wrote that the psychics have now entered Horny Her's chat, concluded that at the core of who I am is love. Herr goes on to write that her love is intense, doing that thing with my fingers, and that she has soulmates, kindred spirits, and twin flames. I mean, she needs her own reality show at this point in time. I mean, seriously. Mayors of St. Paul, starring Horny Her. She also writes that she is demisexual. Hated them in Stranger Things, by the way. Terrifying. The demisexuals in Stranger Things.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh.
Oh, Demigorgon.
Just
Sorry.
a dad joke.
Sorry.
Another dad joke.
Sorry.
I thought it was funny, actually. I chuckled.
Demigorgon, not demisexual. No, that was the youngest actor on that came out as demisexual, didn't he? Isn't that part of it?
I can't keep track.
Isn't that?
I can't keep track.
By the way, she said she's demisexual, which means she does not experience sexual attraction unless she has formed a deep emotional bond with somebody. Well, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. I mean, that's like the most normal thing that can be said about this juvenile lunatic. Her and her husband Kong's now entered the chat. They have 2 daughters. She did not respond to a request for comment. Wait a second. Who didn't respond for it? Is Kong a female? I'm confused. Is she married to a woman with 2 daughters? I can't tell. I can't keep track. All right. So let me put a period on this. We need to bring our guest in. At a minimum, this is a very juvenile woman at a minimum that unfortunately voters in St. Paul pathetically picked to lead their city. I was no fan of former Mayor Melvin Carter. He's a leftist, but certainly he was a better leftist choice than Horny Her is. And I hope that the people in St. Paul are regretting their vote. Unless they're just wildly entertained by all of this at this point in time. So, man, that's just... St. Paul mayor thought colleagues were falling in love with her. Allegations surface. This is a delusional juvenile woman. I'd love to hear your thoughts at 612-584-4565 if you want to leave us a blast. Jon Justice at AmericanExperiment.org. Sophie Cunningham's trans sports stance could become federal law. So Clay from Outkick made a deal, basically, offering up a handful of money to have a team compete against some WNBA players. Carol Evans, Janice Shortall took issue with this. I have the audio to share with you. We've still got a lot of ground to cover. Do not go anywhere. You're listening to the Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment. Coming up in just a moment here, you're going to hear from Center of the American Experiment's Bill Walsh, a frequent guest on the show, talking about some recent polling and commentary that you might have missed that's available at the YouTube page of Center of the American Experiment and at AmericanExperiment.org.
Is the Declaration of Independence worth celebrating? 66% of Minnesotans said yes. The Declaration of Independence is worth celebrating. 4% said boycott. That's just 4% crank, in this poll. We can ignore that.
Gosh, this is shocking to me. It really is. When I picture all of the protesters that I see every weekend with their upside down American flags, the No Kings, and the signs cycle every few months because someone's making them for them and giving them their messages. Those people must be included somewhere in here, right? I don't know. That's incredible.
Is America generally a force for good in the world? And again, remember, this came out right before we bombed Iran. These numbers might be different today, but 54% thought America was a force for good in the world, 41% not a force for good, 5% unsure. So not a horrible result there. I think
41% say not a force for good. How do you think that?
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Now, one of Keith Ellison's campaign donors has pleaded guilty to fraud. Now, so shocking, I know. For what it's worth, became the last of a 7-member family group to plead guilty in the sprawling Feeding Our Future fraud scandal last week. Ikram Yusuf Mohammed, who once worked as a Feeding Our Future employee, but more excitingly was present at the infamous December 2021 meeting where Keith Ellison, our own Attorney General, met with some fraud-connected individuals. She was in that meeting. So a few days after that meeting took place back in December 2021, her brother, Gandhi, who just pled guilty last week, donated the maximum allowed amount to Keith Ellison's campaign. That was $2,500. But this is so interesting because Gandhi was not only being investigated for food fraud, and we've seen this with several fraudsters. Gandhi Muhammad received at least $36 million in Medicaid reimbursements, as well as the stuff that he was making off the free food fraud case. But he hasn't been charged with fraud in those programs yet. So were those ill-gotten gains?
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's the Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment and AmericanExperiment.org. A lot of comments have rolled into the blaster line, 612-584-4565, based off of our previous story of the continuing adventures of the St. Paul mayor, Horny Her. Text messages now reveal that she thought male colleagues were falling in love with her as new allegations surface, saying, "The nature of my work requires a lot of love and passion. Otherwise, the work is too heavy to carry and the burden is too great. I run across this with men more frequently, but men will sometimes mistake it for more. I think they end up falling in love with me, so I have to set clear boundaries." This is what she wrote in text messages to an individual who had claimed harassment but had those charges dismissed in the spring of 2025 while Horny Her was serving in the Minnesota House of Representatives. Let's hear some of your thoughts from the blaster line this morning. Again, 612-584-4565.
Mayor Her's wild imagination kind of reminds me of Steve Urkel when he used to imagine that Laura really did love him.
I always appreciate Bob's comments because he certainly shows his age when he makes comments about Urkel, which is funny to me now because Urkel is now, like, if you make an Urkel reference, like, people immediately know you are a person of a certain age. Let's hear more of your thoughts this morning here on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Good morning, John. You know, if anyone comments to me, aside from my husband, on parts of my body, I'd never talk to them again. And if it's in a work setting, I would go directly to HR. You can have jokes about stuff, but I even was thinking of having a greeting to you of Happy Wiener Wednesday just because that was the joke from last week. But that just seems so wrong to me, too. These Democrats just need to get a grip.
Man, I completely forgot. I had every single intention of opening up the show saying Happy Wiener Wednesday, and I'm sorry. I failed you guys. I'm a failure. I'm sorry I did that. It is Wiener Wednesday. Not too late, though. Still have half the show left to get through.
Does anybody know anything about the private life of this Mayor Her?
You know what? I don't want to know any more about the private life of Horny Her. All right, one more comment, and we'll go to our guest this morning.
John, guaranteed Melvin Carter is sitting there collecting his even bigger paycheck working for Second Harvest Heartland, laughing at what's going on because, again, he's making more money now, not having to deal with the craziness of the city of St. Paul, just cashing his paychecks. It's just disgusting.
Thank you all for the comments, 612-584-4565. With our next guest, Becca Thompson, I know your focus is on Minneapolis, but have you ever thought of going a little bit further east and covering what's been going on in St. Paul based off of all of this recent controversy? Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this show. I'm a Minneapolis kid, so there's always a long time rivalry, and hearing that, gosh, they have their own. Yeah, there's some problems over there too, for sure.
It's something in the water in the Twin Cities, just across the board. So let me back up here a little bit. Sure. I had a friend of the show that came out to the America 250 event a couple of weekends back where we made the announcement about the launch of this show here at American Experiment. And her name is Sandy. I'm sure she doesn't mind me mentioning that. And she was ranting and raving about this woman, Becca Thompson. No, I'd seen your posts online. So the moment that she said your name, I go, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen Becca's comments. And so she's like, listen, you have to have Becca Thompson on your show. You got to get her on your show. I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. I'll see. We were launching the show, very busy and all that. Well, that wasn't enough because Sandy went and emailed me.
I love this.
So this is what Sandy wrote. She says Becca is articulate, smart, has an edgy, cutting sense of humor. She uses all of her gifts to call out the BS that has gone on the past several years in the state of Minneapolis government. Her focus is on Minneapolis, the downfall in the city of the state post George Floyd. Becca was a committed Democrat, but saw the light and has left the party, having worked in and seen the dark side of Minneapolis government. She's not afraid to call out the Minneapolis City Council, the DSA, Governor Walz, the fraud and failing schools. And then she actually goes so far as to give a full background on you. But you know what? I'm going to allow I'm going to allow you to get the audience familiar with your background. So again, thank you for joining the show. I've been a fan of what you've been posting online, and your posts are relentless and they're spot on. But give us a bit of your background and kind of what brings you here to the show.
Yeah, how I ended up sitting right here. Which thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate those superlatives. I hope I can live up to it. Here I'll try to get this as short as I can. I was born and raised in Minneapolis, and I have my degree in mathematics that I got from the University of Minnesota, which I used to have rivalry with my siblings who went to UW, and now I'm like, I don't know, maybe the U of M isn't as good as it used to be. I'm sorry, Big Ten, U of M. And then I became a classically trained professional actor, so I'm very used to being around in here. And here's my 1990s reference, yada, yada, yada. I ended up back in Minneapolis.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
I've been doing a Seinfeld rewatch when I've been prepping right now.
For everything.
Absolutely.
And so then I became a teacher with my math degree. I've been teaching for a very, very long time. And I kind of was like, I'm just going to do the whole Minneapolis thing, teach, do local theater, maybe start a film company. And then when the city burned, it was just kind of like, literally, I was just saying this to people the other day. I'm like, you guys created this monster that's me, because I just wanted to live my life. And then there's nothing, like there are no theaters left. A lot of my friends' theater companies have closed. A lot of my friends who ran dance companies, they've closed, like big tentpole stuff that's downtown. Of course, you probably have heard, maybe you haven't, that the Jungle Theater, they say they're rebranding, but they're selling their theater, which is never a good sign. I'd be surprised if Mixed Blood survives much longer. There's just a lot of spaces that are really, really challenged in that. So that was what got me to get really ticked off. And then I was elected in Minneapolis to the park board, and I love the park board, and that was post 2020. I became very active. I ran for city government. I was successful. I'm very grateful for that time. I saw what was going on behind the scenes. I thought that we were trying to put the city back together after 2020. And then the election that happened of last year, I mean, it's just like, it's relentless. The layers of incompetence and really how there are so many problems I don't even know where to begin. And like I have data on, there were multiple wards in the city of Minneapolis. That's how they carve it up, right? By wards. And they're just, the numbers don't make sense. I asked the state for our election numbers. They kicked it to the city. I asked the city. They kicked it to the county. I asked the county. The county gave me data, but only like a little. It was incomplete. And I was like, I want to know, who signed up day of, who vouched for people, who did this. And they have no granular data on anything. And again, I mean, I've been teaching mathematics and statistics for 25, 30 years. So I can know when it doesn't take much to create a data set. And when you don't have that, then you go, wow, and you're in charge of billions of dollars of budget. And so I'm very passionate about fixing it because it's my hometown, and also like our amazing park system. They're about to just be decimated. The mayor's budget came out 2 days ago. They're going to lay off like 100 employees. Everything that I've predicted when I ran for the city council. Oh, I ran for the city council too. Last year when I ran for the city council, everything I predicted has come true. Everything.
So let me pull from a couple of things that you mentioned so far. Let's focus on the elections for just a moment.
Yeah, please.
Every time that I would bring up controversies taking place inside of Minneapolis, certainly in the wake of what happened in 2020 with the riots and whatnot, I would get a host of comments and emails and phone calls from people saying, "Well, this is what the people of Minneapolis voted for. They voted for this. They voted for this leadership. They're getting what they deserve." And typically, again, talking with Becca Thompson, typically my response would be, "Okay, even if that's true, it's not representative of everybody. And even with that, before you even get to the possibility of shenanigans, doing that thing with my fingers in elections, when you look at the way that these elections are held and just how few people are deciding these city council members, you're paring down to a very, very small group of a handful of a couple thousand people. So again, I would push back on people saying, this is just what people in Minneapolis voted for. So with that, I'm curious, one, do you think you're going to be able to get to any sort of clarity on the outcome of these elections? But more importantly, do you think that people in Minneapolis are starting to wake up to all of this, are getting fed up and frustrated? Because all we're seeing is the on-the-street activism that would lean in.
They're absolutely frustrated.
To the city council.
Yes. So like, look, I've taken a lot of heat of me intimating that our elections are a little suspect. I'm not saying anything over the top right now, but I am just saying it's really opaque. Right? Like if you want clarity and transparency, you don't have it. That much I can say for sure. But then what happens? So this is the land of DFL, okay? I've tried to explain this to people many times. There are moderate to right-leaning residents, and there's a ton of even more normal. I saw someone put up a scale on the internet of just numbers, and you get to numbers to the left and to the right, and it was 5 and 6 are communist socialists, and 1, 2, and 3 and 4 are different gradations of Democrat. And I was I would probably put myself at a 1 or a 2, but the city's being run by the 5s and 6s right now, and it's because they've found a way to pull the levers of that DFL endorsement process, and they're all communists. And the thing is that there are regular, there's a word for people now, normie Democrats. It's funny, they're talking about it even in Michigan. I saw people talking about it of the normies. It was, again, pushing back on this El Said guy. And I was yeah, see, it's pervasive everywhere in a major city. But so what has happened is because it's been a Democrat stronghold my entire life, people just assume that there's no variation inside of what's going on. And so for me, I saw the DSAs, I just call them communists now because that's what they are.
Sure.
I saw them taking it over. And by taking it over, what I mean is that they're in every leadership position inside the party, inside the city party. And then just for a personal example, in Ward 12, which is where I ran, the caucus process, it was probably 50-50. But then my opponent was allowed to have, I remember getting this delegate list, and there were 8 people listed in a single 1-bedroom apartment on Minnehaha Avenue. So it's okay, so either these 8 people don't really live there, or someone needs to call this building manager because that is against code to have 8 people living in a 1-bedroom. But so when they do that, when they take over that's very easy to do. And they do it by having these leadership positions that turn a blind eye, and they certify certain delegates and not others. And then once they get that caucus endorsement, they get the money, and then they brand themselves DFL. And then a lot of well-meaning, just dyed-in-the-wool Democrats. I think of my grandmother, who every election voted for FDR, till the day she died, right? But probably paid no attention. Then they just vote for it. So I think that there's that, coupled with honestly, there's a lot of ignorance of what you're voting for, to be perfectly blunt.
So you used to be a Democrat. Would you consider? I'm curious. Sort of a brief version of the story of your transition over from that. But I'm also curious if.
Sorry, you just used the T word.
I did, didn't I? But I'm also curious if, like, would you go back if the Democrat Party returned to sort of that more classical Democrat Party, maybe somebody, and I guess the best example I could probably give, and you certainly have more background on this than I do, but just based off of recent commentary, would be Michael Rainville. Like,
love Michael.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a guy who I'm probably not going to agree with in terms of a lot of policy. Because I'm not a Democrat, but at the same time, he also is willing to step up and say, okay, this has gone too far. I don't agree with this. He seems to be sensible. Could you see yourself returning to the Democrat Party?
Michael is like, I'm totally in sync with Michael. So like for me, like I'm not currently elected. If I were currently elected, I'd probably consider myself in that wing. But the reality is I just know that with every passing day, it gets more and more taken over by communists.
Do you see it changing? Do you think that this is just how it's going to go? And what is the future of the party going to be?
I don't. It was Hubert Humphrey that made it the DFL, right, and the Democrat Farmer Labor. And Labor was always, I don't know, a lot of Minnesotans know this, Labor was always the communist wing. Right. It was. It took me doing some research because I just, I was, a Minnesota kid who's like, we have a special brand of Democrat and we're called the DFL,
Oh, they're special.
Yeah. We have got to do everything very unique here. We were the only people to vote for Mondale. But so I just thought like this was cool. But then the more I researched it, I was like, holy cow, wait a second. That L was always communism. And it was kind of subsumed, back in when did Humphrey do this? But like he recognized that this was actually a Republican stronghold state. And the farmers were being disenfranchised. And so he glommed it all together. And it's been a stronghold for the DFL ever since. But it's kind of been this precarious wing of labor. So I honestly, I don't know. There's a lot of pride in that. And so I don't know that the party can survive much longer. I certainly don't have it. I mean, the primary's next week, but we'll see what happens.
When you look at what the Minneapolis City Council has been doing, I'm really curious to get your perspective on a host of different issues.
Yeah, please.
And I've actually gone. I went into and we're talking with Becca Thompson. How would you go and personally describe yourself? I kind of have a social media influencer, but it seems like your resume in terms of what you're doing right now and calling out what's happening in Minneapolis is a little bit broader than that. So how would you go and define yourself if you needed to go and put a definition, a description on what you do, Becca?
I honestly don't even know. I think deep down in my heart of hearts, I still consider myself an actor, but that's not something I've done for 10 years. So unless you count my TikTok videos making fun of the DSA. I probably a teacher and an accidental activist, but not the kind of activist that'll burn your neighborhood down.
I actually went and pulled some audio that you had posted online,
all right,
so that we could go and you could riff off of that a bit. Before I get to that though, I want to ask you. Let's talk about something like the removing of the restriction on the bathhouses, right?
Oh my God.
It's a hot topic for a number of different reasons, right? But I'm curious your perspective. What is it in your mind? Why are they pushing this as hard as they are? I've certainly shared my views on it, but why is it that these members of the Minneapolis City Council are so hell-bent on bringing these bathhouses back? What's ultimately their agenda? Because it has to go beyond what they're saying in public regarding their justification for lifting these ordinances.
I've thought about this a lot because I think it's just like truly a degradation of our entire society, because when you can normalize certain things, again, I have an institutional knowledge like Michael Rainville, I love Michael, of just growing up in the city, right? And so I remember there were places when I was a kid that you just didn't go because it was kind of taken over. I didn't set foot in Loring Park until I was much older, because it was like you just didn't go there as a kid because it was kind of a bacchanal. It was. And I think that there's just a general, like, it's a forgive the analogy, it's like a grand peeing on the tree. It's like, this is ours, and we're going to make sure none of you guys even want to come here, because it's just it's a degradation of honestly, I think, humanity. It's making things not welcoming for children, and no matter what they want to say. I read the files. I went deep in to the record and read the files as to why, like the minutes from the meeting in the 1980s, as to why they got rid of it. And it is layers of vile, grotesque, human trafficking, like hurting vulnerable people, and we're bringing this back. I mean, like, it's just unconscionable to me.
Are they ignorant to what the outcome is going to be, or do they just simply not care? And you can apply this across the board with their policies, their anti-police commentary, the anti-business stances that they take. I mean, do you think that they're aware that it's going to be to the detriment of the city and they don't care? Or do you think that they genuinely believe that they are doing good for the city and it would be vibrant because of their policies?
I think they're true believers because they're young and stupid, and I think their handlers completely know that it'll destroy the city, and that's by design. And I think we need to also differentiate here that we've got a bunch of electeds between the age of 25 and 30, and if this ever gets back to them, which I hope it does, it's like, I see you. They are puppets. There's no question they're puppets. I have sat on the dais with them where their eyes are darting down to text messages in real time. They won't say anything unless it's been emailed to them in advance. They will never say anything off the cuff. Their answers are pre-prescribed. So they are young and stupid. They know nothing. And they don't understand outcomes. And I can attest to this because I have been teaching math and I've watched the degradation of our education system in real time as well. So it's like, I don't doubt for a second you've gotten your rubber stamp diploma. You're probably you just shout a lot, and every other word maybe has 3 syllables. And so they're like, ooh, we'll give you a B+ and you got graduated with your bachelor's degree.
You know, you tapped into something, and you are echoing the view that I've had for the longest time, because you can take what you just described happening with the Minneapolis City Council, right? Because I've always felt this way.
Yeah.
You've got individuals sort of in the upper echelons within politics that know what's going on. They are agenda driven. They know full well what they're doing. But then as you move down the line, as you walk down the ladder and you get lower and lower down, you just get more ignorant individuals, and they just follow in lockstep. And you can take that from the Minneapolis City Council, and then you can take it to the Minnesota State Legislature.
Yes.
Because the same thing. And then you can take that all the way to Washington, D.C., you know, and it's replicated time and time again. And what's frightening about that is that those individuals on the lower end, right, the people, those young individuals that you're referring to, say, at the Minneapolis City Council, we know what happens. They end up becoming the true believers, and they start moving up the ladder.
Yes.
And then they end up in the legislature, and then eventually they end up in D.C., and then they end up taking over for the individuals who were running the show all the time, because they basically bought into their own heated, heightened rhetoric, and they become radicals in and of themselves, fully aware of the damage that they're doing, even though they started off as a bunch of ignorant pawns.
Yes, we have one such ladder climber that you're talking about who's running for the Senate, and that's all I'll say.
Let's dive into, as we enter into hour 3. Wow. Here on the John. I know time's just flying by.
You guys are up early.
On the yeah, man, I got here at this building is incredibly quiet at 4:30 in the morning. I can tell you. I probably shouldn't broadcast that, but I just did. Becca Thompson joins us in studio. Found you through social media. If you're not following Becca online, you need to. Becca_Thompson on X. You are very busy, and you provide a lot of material for me on X, so I'm greatly appreciative of that. It is the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. If you want to comment on anything that we're discussing right now, you can leave us a blast at 612-584-4565. Again, that's 612-584-4565. You can also drop me an email, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. And we do have some comments that have rolled in, so let's go and first hear from Elizabeth, who I believe has a question for you.
Hey John, can you ask Becca Thompson what she thinks about the boomers in this city and the protesting and what happened to their brains? I don't understand. These people that are retired and stand on street corners with signs just spouting idiocy. Thank you.
And my apologies too. I get a name that comes over on the blast, and it was Elizabeth, so I assumed it must be her. It must be her husband. So yeah. So we've got. By the way, just real quick, let me add something to this because I haven't had a chance to talk about it this morning. ICE has signed a deal to reopen the private Prairie Correctional Facility in Appleton. So they might as well just start digging the moat around that facility now, because I think we all know that it's going to become protester central. But I got an email yesterday from a friend of the show who was down at the Whipple Federal Building and said that the protesters are still out there every single day. It's just become a fact of life. So your comments about the boomers in the city protesting, what's going on with them, and I'd just be curious to get your thoughts on the street activism that you've seen while covering what's been happening in Minneapolis.
Well, I think I do think this is generational, and that's where my Seinfeld jokes come in. But I think that we're dealing with one group of people and their children, or their children and the parents of this. It's like sort of the Vietnam War all over again. And so I think, I get very sensitive talking about boomers because I really believe in the honor your father and mother commandments. As though I have, admirable. A lot of frustration, but I do believe that I have empathy for that generation. I mean, they watched the president get murdered on television. They had other people assassinated that they believed in. And then, of course, there was the Vietnam War, and there's all this kind of stuff. So I think that there's a lot of that whole, I'm on the right side of history kind of a thing, that people convince themselves so much that, I am on the right side of history. Yeah. So they need my voice, and so I'm retired, so I'm going to go be boots on the ground, or I'm going to go build my sign, or I'm going to drive a bunch of kids to, young people to the Capitol and do my part, and never think about why, or never think about what is the consequence of this larger thing. I think we're really... I personally, at my age, I'm a teacher, so we always talk about being a lifelong learner. And I think that's something I've always tried to model, which is how I'm able to sometimes change my mind or say that maybe I was wrong, or just look at something and be like, oof, I needed to consider this and I didn't. And I'm very bold in what I say because I am very confident that I've done the work. But if I make a massive mistake, or if I make a mistake, I will say it, right? I think that as a lot of people age, though, they just turn their brains off and they just are like, nope, I decided I'm right, you're wrong, or this is right and this is wrong, and this is good and that is evil, and thus and so I don't have to consider it. And so then there's just a lot of time to make signs, blow whistles, have bells over the freeway overpass, and it's just exhausting.
Well, and because of everything you mentioned, too, whatever media that they're paying attention to is probably the only media that they're going to pay attention to.
Yeah,
they're not going to bother looking for varying degrees of opinion, because as you said, they believe, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I've been on this earth for a long time. I'm set in my ways. I see what the media is telling me, and it's riffing off of what I already believe. So why would I bother going and search for anything else, because I already know what the truth is.
Well, absolutely. And I'll confess this. I was a rabid anti-Trumper, never Trumper. And I had some family members who were trying to talk to me because they were like, even if you disagree with us, you're going down a path that's and I was like, absolutely not. I wouldn't listen to anything. I'm like, well, what's your source? And they would say, and I'm like, I don't believe them. They are liars. It's and I would not, I was like, I had certain things that were trustworthy, and then I had this big pile of things that were not trustworthy. I just would reject it the moment it was presented to me. The moment I was like, well, if you got it, I don't believe that. Oh, that's just a bunch of propaganda. I'm not going to listen. And I think what ultimately changed or allowed me to have my mind change was the city burning. And you're like, oh, maybe these people and then people I was friends with were cheering it. I was like, what? Wait, I didn't sign up for this, right? So I think So being someone who actually was that person who just thought they were right and would reject sources, I see that sometimes too, of like, I don't know, like, you're going to find your own way to understanding this more in a more complex way. But like, I'm not necessarily going to convince you by trying to show you something that you quote unquote don't believe because you don't believe this.
Right.
That's why I don't make up my own math. I use math because it's math and I'm a math teacher but it's like, here are the numbers. Cause it's like, I'm not citing the, HuffPost. I'm also not citing Fox News. I'm just citing a calculation that like, these are the numbers that I got from the city database, blah.
Right.
So that's anyway. Yeah.
Well, I think you spoke to something very important that we've seen some anecdotal evidence of. I'm typically a very optimistic, glass half full kind of guy, probably to my own detriment as a talk show host. But the willingness to go and admit that you were wrong about something, or to at least be open and honest to change your opinion about something, we need much more of that right now within our commentary, within our society, because too many individuals refuse to go and admit that they might have been wrong on an issue or that they've changed their view on an issue. I think it's what makes commentary from Bill Maher so powerful.
Yeah.
Here's a guy I don't agree with, right? We have completely opposite views regarding religion, and I probably disagree with the majority of what his policies are and what he believes in, and yet I do have a level of respect for him because at least he's willing to go and call out the ridiculousness when he sees it. He's keeping an open mind about it. We need more of that within commentary on the conservative side of things, because there's too many conservative voices out there that simply refuse to go and bend or change their view on things. I'm not right on everything. If you listen to this show, it's up to you to decide whether or not what I'm speaking is truth or not. That's on you. I'm going to be as honest and genuine as possible, but I'll also admit, probably to my detriment as a host, that yeah, I've been wrong on a lot of different issues, especially COVID when the whole thing started. And it's funny to me that you held a particular view over Trump, because I've seen individuals who have also changed their tune, and they are also people that are willing to stop and go, okay, let me look at what the other side is saying about this person that I despise so much. And you may not still agree with a lot of how he operates or his policy, but at least you can be open and honest enough to go, what they've been saying about him is absolutely wrong. It's a lot of rhetoric, and there's too many individuals out there that will simply refuse. You just say Trump, the blinders go up, that's it. Trump derangement syndrome takes over, and they will never go and admit that they were wrong on anything. So I hope that we as a society, and again, I'm not holding my breath on this, Becca Thompson, but I hope that we as a society, begin to stop and have more individuals willing to go and change their view, or at least open up their mind a bit to realize that they might not be right on these issues. And we'll talk about this in a moment, like when it comes to the trans sports, the boys playing in girls sports issue.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of, and I made this comment earlier this week, it's probably one of the biggest issues that Democrats and those on the left are just categorically completely wrong on.
I agree.
And yet they dig their heels in over this, because they are unwilling to relent to the fact that if they were to go and agree that boys shouldn't play in girls sports, suddenly they're capitulating to the right and Trump. And it's to the devastation of girls competing in sports.
Yeah. Oh man, are we wanting to talk about this?
Oh yeah, no, I've audio.
We're on and on and on.
Well, as a matter of fact, let's do that now. Let me get this audio out there, and we can go ahead and spend some time here, because I do want to go back to the Minneapolis City Council. I have a message from Council member Chavez over the anti-immigrant rhetoric included in the National Integrated Ballistic Information Modernization Program. So we'll get into that in just a moment, but let's start here. You had posted, so Sophie Cunningham, obviously, was a target of protest when the Fever came to town to play against the Lynx recently. The idiot coach for the Lynx has been out there making a bunch of just ridiculous comments. This is a clip that you, Becca Thompson, posted on X of an interview that Cheryl, the coach for the Lynx, said on a recent
These young girls that are sitting at games with anti-trans signs, do they understand actually what their real problems are and how they're being marginalized? We're still not in a space where we have equality.
So she's talking about people that have anti-trans signs at the game and pushing back on those women that are holding those signs trying to defend biological women. And I know you had posted this online.
Because I'm sorry, we've got this, this TV show called The Handmaid's Tale, and people can't see when they're being a handmaiden. It's like, what is wrong with you? Like, I have been a coach for years. I was a softball player. I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be the first woman in Major League Baseball. And not only was I laughed off the baseball team, not that I was good enough to play, but I was told I wasn't allowed, right? Because I'm a girl. That was, many years ago. But I only add that anecdote to share that I have been a passionate person of using sports to elevate women's equality, right? And just like on any number of issues. And so for a coach, it's like, have you lost your mind? Like you have your job because it's the WNBA. Does the W stand for whatever? It's the whatever National Basketball Association. Like, what is wrong with you? Talk about bite the hand that feeds you. And also, this is somebody who I would assume was like me and fighting to be able to have a space where someone I just posted this, or maybe I was just in a rant with a friend, who knows? But like someone like Caitlin Clark, I have so many friends back in the day who were unbelievable athletes, but the moment that college ended, it was done. It was over. Unless you were a skier and you were like, maybe you can go to the Olympics. There was nothing. There were no professional women's team sports. None. So all of us, we just did our time, tried to have some fun in college, and that was it. And now Caitlin Clark would have just ended as the greatest all-time scorer in the NCAA, and then she'd be done, right? But it's now you have a chance to play on, and you're going to allow that to erode this quickly? And here's what gets me. So I was on the park board, and I fought to get softball-specific diamonds for fast pitch in the city of Minneapolis, of which there had never been any. When we passed that, I started crying as a kid because as a girl growing up in Minneapolis, going to the parks, I saw all the baseball fields that I wasn't allowed to play on. And then I would see all these dumpy SHITT, like softball fields, right? That then now, and then spring forward, 30 years, I'm coaching at South High, and I'm realizing my players are getting kicked off for the beer league. We don't have anything, right? So I fight to get these fields. I was talking to colleagues. I was like, I want to just make this about, I want to force this issue right now. And I'm going to force this conversation. This was 2 years ago in Minneapolis. And I was advised Becca, don't take this on. Don't put this target on the back of everybody right now. But I just think we as adults and as adult women who fought for this for a long time, we are leaving girls out. We're hanging girls out to dry. And I said that at the time. And they're like, Becca, fight that another day. That was what I was counseled. Fight, because I saw my players who are trying to stand up against they just wanted to finish their game. And to me, they're completely related. So I just it's, if you give a mouse a cookie, right, that old little kid's book, they take over everything. And that's what this is. And that's why I'm such a stalwart. And I finally was I have to say something publicly. I'm not going to hang out kids to dry anymore. And you start to see these young teens who are getting bludgeoned in a volleyball game or a basketball game. And they're just out trying to do it, or being walked into in the locker room, which also happened to me at the YMCA. And it's just ridiculous. So anyway, yeah. Should we go there?
Yeah. No, we're going to continue to go there because I have some more audio to share. I want your response. A new proposal from Senator Marsha Blackburn seeks to keep gender-confused boys off of girls' sports teams and out of their locker rooms. The bill was introduced yesterday by Blackburn and 10 other GOP senators, and it would tie federal funding to whether schools protect girls from discrimination based on biological reality. It seeks to codify language into federal law that makes it clear that discrimination protections under Title IX are based on sex and not sexual orientation and so-called the gender identity. We're going to take a quick break, but let me just say, I'm obviously fully in support of this legislation, but it's a travesty that we have to have it in the first place.
Agreed.
This shouldn't even be necessary to have
this is why Democrats are going to lose again in 26.
From your Becca Thompson's lips to God's ears through the roof of this building. All right, you got some time to hang out?
Sure.
All right, we have comments that have been rolling into the blaster line, 612-584-4565. You can also email john.justice@americanexperiment.org. Real quick, and I want to talk to, listen, both the men and women out there. Be honest, because your old self would be disappointed in you right now. You used to have the confidence, you used to own the room, and you don't anymore. But you can absolutely change that, and you can do it without any pills, without any shots. For NutraWave and over 13 years, thousands of men and women have lost the weight. It's that simple. I've lost 22 pounds on this program. It's completely changed my relationship with food, and I am a person that loves food, and I still love food. But guess what? I have a different relationship with it, and it's allowed me to keep the weight off, and I'm actually going to do another round of the NutraWave program just so I can finally reach that body mass index that I'm supposed to have for a dude my age and my size. It all starts with a free, almost $300 value. It's a truth metabolic scan and a free red light therapy session. It's awesome. It's painless. Red light therapy. It's absolutely effective. I've done it myself. Take advantage of this amazing offer. You've got nothing to lose, and the spots are limited. What you need to do is simply call 952-260-1965 and mention the word strike. It's that simple. 952-260-1965. Again, 952-260-1965. Get started today. Go and see Dr. Bob. The dude is amazing. The program is fantastic. And again, it's a $300 value just for finding out how the entire program works. And trust me, it absolutely does. Now, individual results may vary, but remember, no pills and no shots. You can also go to nutriwave.us for more information. We'll talk more with our in-studio guest here on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, Becca Thompson. If you missed some of the commentary from Freedom Friday last week, we'll get you up to speed. Here are a couple comments from a friend of the show and RNC committeeman, A.K. Kamara, and we're back with our guest in just a moment.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul, but who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
This woman
I didn't know this about
has had a bunch of credible allegations going back years to when she worked for the city. She's been doing this behavior, right?
This is the St. Paul mayor who's now under investigation, and we'll get to the details here in a moment.
She used to be with St. Paul working as staff, and she had this falling out with a friend who filed a harassment restraining order against her.
So, St. Paul Mayor Cowley Herr under investigation, sexual harassment following complaints from the police chief Axel Henry. I get that reversed. The investigation going on since April involves inappropriate text messages and other alleged incidents, raising concerns about transparency and the use of personal devices for government business. Herr has stated her commitment to cooperating with the investigation. What's interesting about her statement that she released on Wednesday, there was no denial at all. She took the stance of, people just don't understand my humor, my sexy humor. I'm adding the sexy part in, but that's what it is.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit americanexperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There was just a video that went viral the other day of Nick Shirley talking to a woman in New York who had been sexually assaulted. And she said, I would rather that person doesn't spend the rest of their life in jail, and I don't have an answer of how to do that. But I don't even think they should even go to jail because our jail system is so messed up. And he was like, well, then how do you stop it from happening? Well, I don't really have an answer. Go back to Mayor Lynch, mayor of whatever county is that the same type of logic can be employed, that you're looking at, well, they were convicted and they're going to have to wear that mark. But really, do we think it's fair that we would send this person to another country because of this? And to me, that type of suicidal empathy leads to the destruction of our society.
Think about it. Black and Hispanic students in Mississippi perform better in reading and math than Black and Hispanic students in Minnesota. And Mississippi spends thousands of dollars less per student than Minnesota. Mississippi spends less money, gets better results, and their achievement gaps are closing, while ours are getting worse. Think about it. It's time for real education reform, so Minnesota can catch up to Mississippi. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's so upsetting to see our leaders, like Governor Walz, gaslighting us, basically, and saying, no, things are going great. We are one of the best states in the country. Then why are people leaving? And why are people struggling? And why are people saying that Minnesota's on the wrong track?
Yeah, that is such a good point. I mean, it's just every day you realize, like, you talk to people who say it's just so hard in Minnesota right now. And then we have people at the top who are completely denying that there's any problem whatsoever.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
John Phelan.
It's the Jon Justice Show presented by American Experiment.
Well, I have to admit, my only source of information comes from the Jon Justice Show. I don't need any other information, and I'm set straight for the rest of the day. Great show, John. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Scott. I greatly appreciate it. Joining me in studio is Becca Thompson, resident of Minneapolis, a social media influencer, a teacher, and an individual who's fighting to bring back vibrancy to Minneapolis. If you are not following Becca Thompson, Becca_Thompson on X, you're doing yourself a disservice. Make sure you go and do so. I've been pulling content that you've been sharing. You make a show prep easier for me, Becca, and easier to do the show. We've had a lot of fantastic comments from your time with us this morning, and I agree. I've appreciated your insight today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Let's get back to a few more thoughts from the blaster line, 612-584-4565. If you want to share any comments based off of our conversation.
This question is for Becca, and it's kind of a statement as well. I have a hard time believing that you are the anomaly, and my question is, how many people do you talk to out there that feel the same way in your same situation with your same previous beliefs? I mean, I have a really, really hard time believing that you are very rare.
Yeah, are there more individuals out there like yourself that you've seen?
I would say yes, and I know. Okay, how should I put this? Barring the whole POTUS Trump conversation, there are just a ton of people in Minneapolis who are fed up with the DFL not being honest about the takeover of the DSA. I've been telling, this is also a very deep track nerdy joke, but for the last 2 years, I said the DFL is like Usgiliath. It's overrun, and nobody would get it except for the supreme dorks. But yeah, it's overrun. It can't be. So there are a ton of people honestly, but it's kind of whispers because it's still such a DFL stronghold. It always will be. And so how do you parse that out? And I have been advocating it's too late. Now, when it comes to the president, I would say there's still largely a lot of people in Minneapolis don't like Trump. And that's I think that's where a little bit sometimes, as I talk to everybody, and I grew up in a family that had all the colors of the political rainbow, if we can use that analogy. So it's like, it's not hard for me to talk to people, but I kind of would say to people on the right or the far right, like if you want to build a bridge, stop shoving like Trump down people's throats of like, you just have to take all of it, but like start with like, hey, maybe you also want to fund your parks. So how, like, what's going on with small business? And like, it's like baby, I know it sounds kind of pathetic because I can handle, but you're talking about like decades and generations of like intractable like ideology on both sides, right? Like who just don't want to bend. And I feel like part of why I'm out here trying to make noise is like I'm trying to build an olive branch because again, I grew up here, which a lot of people didn't. I have family all over the outer, the greater Minnesota, which I love. Greater Minnesota is where my family is originally from, way up in like the Moorhead area. And so like I think like we have to start to just kind of start with a conversation of like, hey, what's working? I've noticed a lot of people on maybe they're far right, but on the right that are just like kind of like, you did this to yourselves and and I'm like, well, the bankruptcy of Minneapolis will bring down the whole state, you guys.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
I don't know what you're laughing at. You know what I mean?
People don't realize
it doesn't help. And then it gets people on their heels. And honestly, it is very juvenile. I'm a teacher. I watch kids all the time. Like you try to get into a conflict resolution place and then someone will say something and then we're right back to our corners. And I do feel like that's a little bit like, the more moderate Democrats in the city would probably be willing to acknowledge certain things, and they talk about it to me, but because of like the more national scene, and then there's also like a protection of the party. Like I could give the nuance of who's DSA. I call them closet DSA. Like let's get out of the closet, guys. Like live in the light. And then there's like actual DSA, and then there's like the so-called normies, right? And I could tell you who everybody is and what pile they land in, right? But because we don't want to give the GOP any space. It's like it feels like an abusive relationship. Honestly, it's like, well, we can't let this get out, like our internal turmoil. And so there's also that, like, so like if you're right of center, like just, I guess, honestly, like start by a little compassion because there are tons of people in the city who are normal. I don't want, like, it makes, I'm imagining my neighbors now giving me side eye, like, what the heck did you talk about this morning, Becca?
Well, the communists have been able to, and I agree with you. I mean, that's essentially what they are.
Yeah, they're communists, absolutely.
They've been able to infiltrate because people have had this myopic frustration of President Donald Trump. And this has been, this is kind of a hallmark of politics for the longest time. And most people right now who are so rabid anti-Trump, going back to what we were talking about further, this inability to be honest or to admit they're wrong about something, the policies of what President Donald Trump has done and what Trump has done, barring ICE operations, and we can get into that, but for the most part, it doesn't have a direct daily impact on their lives.
Right.
And so they're angry at this larger thing of Trump. They've all joined in that, but it's to the detriment of what actually impacts them on a daily basis in the very neighborhoods and places where they live and they spend their money. And because of that, those communists have been able to come in, ride that wave of anti-Trump, Trump derangement syndrome to positions of power, and it's just going to undermine even more what's been happening at the local level that they've completely taken their eye off of.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I got caught up in that and didn't it started with the Democrat Party. It's that whole blue no matter who, and the DSA / communists, they know this. You can find clips of them. They're online flat out saying it.
Yeah. They're not hiding it anymore.
No,
there is no hiding
they're
it
not.
at all. No.
And they used to hide it. And now I've noticed if I mention communists in videos or whatever, if I'm on TikTok it's the new I'm like, I know all your like tropes, because the new thing is now is like define communism. And I'm like, no, go F off. How about you read a history book? Like I even like I don't want to say I got baited, because I refuse to get baited into these things, but I was like, Mao and Stalin and the gulags, and how about, is it the gulag am I mispronouncing archipelago? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
How about that?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, and then this person responded. They're like, I asked for a definition, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, because it's this war of words. The communists also want to bait you into like you're on their reel, like they just you're the fish on their line, and they're just gonna like kill you with spitting words that mean absolutely nothing, and it's just a time kill while they're breaking into your car.
So this tees up these clips as we go back to the issue of the WNBA boys and girls sports.
Let's please.
This tees this up perfect. This tees it up perfectly. So first off, here's the clip. This is Clay Travis out of Outkick. He's on Fox News talking with Jesse Waters about presenting this dollar amount to get a boys sports team to play against WNBA players.
Do a good job here. I have challenged the WNBA, which says, some of their coaches have been saying, that men who identify as women should be eligible to play in the league. Okay, now there's a French superstar, 21 points she's averaging, and by she I mean he, 20 rebounds a game. Okay, I want to do two things. One, I want to have a boys high school team versus the WNBA Las Vegas Aces. I'll put $10 million on the line. The boys are going to win. We're going to put it on pay-per-view. We're going to make a lot of money for charity. Secondly, Jesse, I am putting in an application to get a WNBA franchise for my home, Nashville. It's going to be the most inclusive team that has ever existed. Only trans, only men who identify as women on the team. Our motto, one love, two balls, the Nashville Balls. We are going to be the greatest women's basketball team starring men of all time. The best women, Jesse, are men.
All right. I think.
Now, speaking of taking the bait, so at Care 11, Jana Shortall apparently thought this was news, which makes me laugh, because you sit back and you go, okay, you're just heightening the awareness of the thing that you are so ardently pushing back on. But when you talk about the language, she does a really interesting little trick. And maybe trick isn't the right word, but she does something very interesting in her. So this is her response to Clay Travis and his deal to, again, put $10 million on the line to have a boys high school team versus the WNBA Las Vegas Aces. This is what Jana Shortall had to say.
One last thing tonight. The entire world of women's sports is facing the debate within its own leagues of who should get to play and who should not. And a voice that often shouts loudly in that debate is a right-leaning outlet owned by Fox News called Outkick Sports. And today its founder took to a new stunt, one that really makes no sense if Outkick is really concerned about caring about women in women's sports. So Clay Travis, he's the man behind Outkick. He announced today he's offering $10 million to the winner of a game of basketball between a high school boys team of his choosing and the WNBA defending champions, the Las Vegas Aces. I thought to myself, why? But obviously the answer is because he thinks it is so impossible for any group of women, let alone the best in the game, that they could ever beat younger and more inexperienced boys. It's a thinly veiled sexist joke, revealing the actual truth of how he and his organization feel about women's sports. It's not about caring about them. They think women's sports are a joke. Good night.
All that I can envision is the Superman meme of, the joke and you missed it as it flies overhead, right? I think she missed the entire point intentionally of what Clay Travis.
Did it 100% intentionally.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Again, I'm listening to this and I'm like embarrassed for my past self, because I used to think, oh, she's so great. And now I just think she's a nincompoop. Like that, you missed it on purpose. And listening to that, I'm like, it's really about if women at their best are not as good even as juvenile boys. Actually, Jenna, it's about grown men that you apparently want to be are fine with them taking over the WNBA.
Bingo.
Why are you being such a handmaiden? Again, let's put a Hulu show on and we'll all talk about it, about this fiction, and we'll wear our big things and say Trump is trying to make us handmaidens. You are a handmaiden on television on Care 11 right now. What was the point of that? And it was a lie. The entire thing was a deceit.
Yeah, she
did it on purpose.
She wants to present, when she's talking about girls, she's talking about her twisted version of girls that are men pretending to be girls, but she just redefines it. You want to talk about the language? She's going off of her redefining of biology and biological boys and girls. So in her mind, she's thinking, oh, they're just against, girls playing in sports. It's like, no, your definition of what a girl is patently false. You are completely misguided in all of this.
Well, absolutely. And I'll say, and I will get myself in trouble for this, but I am passionate about this as a mother, as a teacher, and as a former girl in sports. But 10-ish about years ago, and you can look this up because I was a professional actor. I was part of the whole Me Too movement. I was interviewed in the LA Times with this director, James Toback. It was this whole big to-do, Vice magazine, which I think is now defunct. But
I think you're right.
Yeah. There was, for me, it was James Toback, but there was like Harvey Weinstein. They took down Kevin Spacey, all these, Me Too. Well, 10-ish about years ago, we as a nation declared that men are evil, essentially. And then lo and behold, what comes on the other side of that is now we're ushering in, but don't worry, you're not really a man. So this is what I see this as, just like this societal, truly, genuinely like psychotic thing that I have watched in my lifetime. A lot of young kids who are maybe homosexual that are now isn't the whole point that you're trying to give kids space to discover who they are, and instead we're just going to medicate them. Like, yeah. I find the whole thing repugnant, and I having a total handmaiden like Jana Shortle change that argument on purpose. And she, there's so many tells. This right-leaning outlet Outkick, which is owned by Fox News. It's like, and I don't know, Fox News is Trump adjacent, and aren't you mad at Trump right now? What are we talking about anyway? I have a good night, women, with a Y. It's like nothing. It's just words. It's just words, and I hate it. Can you tell?
But think about how powerful it would be if you had an individual like that. And I know that there are those members of the LGBT community that are stepping up and pushing back on exactly the thing you're talking about. But think about how powerful it would be if she were to go without compromising who she is as a person and how she identifies, and point out exactly what you mentioned, because that point you made about the Me Too movement versus where we are now in the trans movement, they cannot coexist in the same space at all. You've basically undermined everything and the progress doing that thing with my fingers that was made during the Me Too movement. Now you've basically you've upended the entire thing and made all of that completely irrelevant.
100%. And you know what is so, again, like let's flash forward like 50 years and have history look back on us, right? It'll be like, yeah, you're so progressive that you chemically castrated young gay kids. That's what you did. You chemically and surgically altered how is that progress for like young, gay, like homosexual teens who are discovering what they may or may not be, right? But let's just I can't even, that's a whole big thing, which probably a can of worms I shouldn't have gotten into. But I get fired up because of the fact that, again, like I said about the sports thing, it's like we are leaving. I have watched as a teacher, we are hanging kids out to dry. Kids should not have to fight this battle alone, period. Yeah. And it's a bunch of cowardly adults. And the only thing I'm ashamed of is that I was quiet about it for too long, letting oh, it's fine. And then watching kids fight it out and watching kids not have enough adults, and me thinking that oh, but people are going to call me a Trumper if I really, I'm worried about being labeled when instead I could go out and add a voice to help kids. If there's even one child that is oh man, somebody else like stood up for me, then that's worth it to me. It's like it's like such ego to think that like, oh well, you know, my neighbors might think that like I voted for Trump if I happen to say that I don't think that men should play in women's sports. Like it's like I just, to me that's just ridiculous, and that's how a lot of things stayed quiet, is because of this, you know, censorship, cancel culture that we live in. So
you can follow Becca Thompson on X at Becca_Thompson. Is there anywhere else where people can find you online, or is it the best place to go?
I'm on TikTok too, and
Okay.
I have like reels, but mostly it's just too much to keep track of. You know what I mean?
Let's go back to the blaster line. Got a lot of comments that have rolled into 612-584-4565. If you have a comment that you want to share about the commentary that you hear on the show.
Good morning, John. This is Jim from Wisconsin. I am so glad you had your guest on. It's good to hear someone who was fully on the left that has turned, because it gives us hope. There are so many people that are just that crazy out there. And so it's given me hope this morning that maybe we can turn the tide. Have a great day.
Well, and what I hope, and thank you, James, for that. You know, what I hope is that how he describes sort of, you know, someone who was fully on the left and has turned. I hope that changes to Democrats who are willing to call out what the Democrat Party has become. Because there's always going to be two parties in this country.
Yeah.
You know, that's not changing. And so I think it's almost more important, while I would like to see as many people come over to conservatism as possible, don't misunderstand, I also think at the moment that the country cannot continue on a positive path if the Democrat Party becomes completely overrun by communists, because then you're dealing with half the country being run by communists, and if they get in power, we're in deep, deep trouble. So what I hope happens is I hope more Democrats come out and start to call out what their party has become to bring it back to what it typically, classically has been. So again, I want those... You know, I want liberals to become conservatives, but at the same time, right now, the bigger issue is making sure that Democrats do not let their party be overrun by communists, because that's what's happening right now.
Absolutely. And, you know, I got to just say, you know, it does. The Lord of the Rings is the greatest book of all time.
You keep throwing out these pop culture references, and you're going to be on the show a lot, Becca Thompson. I'm going to tell you.
I see you have your, you know, Grogu over there.
Yeah,
so, like,
that's Shogru, by the way.
Oh, sorry. We haven't even started talking about Star Wars.
That is Shogru. That is Grogu's estranged brother, Shogru.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to let you know.
Yeah,
Anyways, please, go ahead.
No, you know, it's like if you have Merry and Pippin talking about, you know, Treebeard doesn't want to help, and they're going to go back to the Shire, and Pippin doesn't get it, and Merry does, and Merry's like, you don't understand, like, there won't be a Shire to go home to, right? That's what I feel like, honestly, is like, I just was texting someone this morning. I said, I honestly feel like we're living Germany in the 1920s. The playbook is the exact same. Germany was extremely liberal. You know, that's where you get things like Cabaret, the musical Cabaret. All thought, like, as a mathematician and someone who's classically trained actress, like, all thought, like, plays, like, you had Brecht, you had, like, so much, all these universities of these great thinkers were all in Berlin, right? It was extremely liberal, but I was like, gosh, it feels like this is what we're reliving it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm Mary with, like, if I don't start talking now, what is even the point of this, like, this arc of, like, well, I really, you know, I'm not a conservative. I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of left leaning. And then, like, people just, again, the myopia of that everybody cares about your every thought about everything. No, to me, the moment is bigger than that. We have communists at the door who are burning our cities down and who want to, quite honestly, murder whole sections of people. It's getting thinner and thinner, the veil, before they're just going to call for, like, another Holocaust. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, not sorry. And so I'm just like, I'm a student of history, and I'm a person who does math projections. So I'm like, I can see where this is going.
Yeah.
This moment is larger than me. I don't care what you say about me. I'm going to fight this as much as I can.
Well, and it's dovetailing off of what you just said. There were, for the longest time, I would wonder, especially early in my career, it was like, how how does a Hitler rise to power? How do so many individuals become convinced to be that evil, right? The reality is, for those individuals didn't see themselves as evil. That's a part of it. But I'm watching, and this just recently, I was doing a rewatch of Fury, right? Fantastic film. Brad Pitt, just just across the board amazing film. And suddenly I had this, not epiphany, but just this realization of the time period in which that film, fictitious as it is, but, World War II, the distance between when that happened and when, Hitler's rise to prominence, and the year that I was born in 1972. And then I compared to how many years that I've been on the earth now, and I'm going, holy cow. Like, the time frame there is like, I'm now looking at it in the time frame of my life and much less, as if we could see this happen in my lifetime. And it begins to provide, as you were just mentioning, that needed perspective on how quickly these movements can form over a period of time. And before you know it, it's right there on your doorstep. When I consider just how close World War II and Hitler was to the time when I was born, based off of where we are now. And it is that quintessential example that we're living through of, if you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it. And it's the public education system that has failed our youth to teach them history, to teach them, what has happened in the past, that has brought about the rise of everything that you and I have been talking about on the show this morning.
Absolutely. And I've been called alarmist by people even a year ago when I said I want to make it public that we the Democrats are overrun by communists, and they're like, don't make that, don't make that public, don't scare people. I said this city is going to go bankrupt and it's on its way to doing worse than Detroit because Detroit, when it fell, didn't exist in the realm of work from home. Right. So it was able to collapse, but it still had a chance to return. There's no chance for Minneapolis if we allow what's happening to happen. But yeah, when you see it playing out, because I am a student of history and it does go quickly. I would be remiss if I didn't say something. And again, like I said, I don't care how crazy you think I am. I know I'm ultimately correct.
Right.
And so all these movements, whether it was Germany or whether it was the Bolsheviks in Russia or whether it's Mao, they start out they're student-led. I mean, there's Joseph Stalin was completely like this Al-Said, and he's handsome, just beat poet guy. That's how Stalin started before he murdered millions of people just a couple decades later. So but again, I don't think young people even know this. They're useful idiots. And so when I call them out as being, puppets, they get all upset with me and they want to police my language. And it's go ahead. I am probably going to say things wrong. But that is nibbling at me to try to get me on my heels, that I'm morally incorrect when I'm morally very correct. So, and I could go on and on and on.
Talking with Becca Thompson, Becca_Thompson on X, because the truth of the matter is the communists are not hiding it anymore. And it's to the benefit of individuals like yourself, this show, that they're not hiding it anymore. I mean, they're going on Fox News. The DSA is laying out their platform for everybody to see. Go to the Minneapolis Times. They have a whole section and a series of the DSA in Minneapolis putting forward all of their different proposals. It's been this multi-week expose that's available right now. They're not hiding any of what they want to do. And with that, let's go here in the time that we have left. So, Council Member Chavez, Jason Chavez. By the way, where do you put? Because this is one of the more vocal individuals, and he was also spearheading the decriminalization of the bathhouses. Where do you put Jason Chavez on the hierarchy of what we were mentioning before of the DSA, the communists on the city council? You think he's one of these younger individuals ignorant to the ramifications of what he's doing, or do you think he's a little bit more aware?
I think he's fully ignorant. He's one of the Chas. So Robin Wansley she's a bold communist, doesn't even hide it, and then she runs the city council, and then she has her minions, the Chas, Chowdhury, Chavez, Chugtai, and they do her bidding along with council president, but that's a different story. And so, Jason is. I have not known him to be very bright, and I have known that off camera he is just a normal person. This is what, again, like I don't want to say he's a normal person. He's not mean off camera. And so sometimes people are like, well, they're nice. Like yes, I do sometimes feel badly because I know these people. I know them. I do sometimes feel badly, but I'm also like, you put yourself in this intersection. And also, he and all his minion DSA friends mercilessly went after me and put words in my mouth that I never said when I ran for the city council last year. So I'm like, well, turnabout is fair play. Like it's a tactic that you used, so it's a tactic I'm going to use. I think you're a nincompoop. So yeah, no, he's a useful idiot, and I think he's a true believer for sure.
There's a letter from the Minneapolis Times that he put out on the 31st condemning the hateful anti-immigrant rhetoric included in the National Integrated Ballistic Information Modernization Program. We talked about this on the show a few days ago. The council voted 7-5 to move forward on this. It will require 9 votes to eventually accept the grant that's needed for law enforcement. He opposes it because of the language relating to investigating crimes by illegal aliens. I wanted to use this, though, to play an audio clip that you posted. And this is from, is it Arin?
Oh, Chowdhury. Yes.
Chowdhury. Okay.
Oh my gosh, she
I believe she's commenting on this very issue. Okay,
yeah,
so
she is.
Here's the clip.
For me, the purpose of funding and the Biden Act and the language in which this came from is extremely egregious and deplorable. And the term illegal alien is not just a legal term of art. It's a slur. It is an absolute slur. Calling people illegal aliens is dehumanizing, degrading, and it creates a permission structure for violence against them. It just does, and it has, and we've seen it over and over again.
It just
and
does,
so there's
guys.
a policy choice here today is, do we apply for grants where the purpose of funding has slurs within them?
Listening to her voice is really hard for me because I know her, and she is so calculated. I know that she was reading from that script. Here's what I'll say as a math person, okay? Because I've talked with children before and they don't necessarily understand. Like, yes, no human being, every human being is a gift of God, and nobody is illegally here in the planet. But we also have statehoods, right? And the phrase is a very technical phrase, right? Alien means foreigner, means they're not a citizen, and illegal means they did not come here in legal metrics. That's what it is. So it's like,
it's not hard.
No, and I feel like at math, it's like if someone said, well, negative numbers, that's really those numbers have feelings too. Yes, I know, but it's a direction. I'm trying to express a direction for the number, so I need to use negative, and it's a way to communicate what I'm doing. That's how I feel when they get so wrapped up in the emotion of it. It's like this is much needed money, and they never miss an opportunity to A, waste people's time, B, make the issue not the real issue, because if they get this in the news, which they have, that means that the million issues in the city of it crumbling beneath their feet never makes the news. Like how small businesses, all the businesses that I spoke with when I was campaigning, the owners, they don't take a salary because they cannot make it work otherwise. And they're committed to the city and they're hopeful for change. And I'm like, well, change ain't going to come with this city council, right? Downtown never gets talked about with the empty buildings or the fact that, places like US Bank and Target Corp are considering leaving, and like Target got out of its lease. Like, those are the conversations that should be every day in the city council. But instead, we're wasting our time on a singular phrase in a grant that we need this money. And I get, like, if you want to have a press conference afterwards and be like, yeah, I didn't like that, but, but like, fine. If you want to, I'm not, or have your own blog. They all have their newsletters. Go ahead. But to waste staff time and to waste council time and to try to push this in the news when it's like when the Titanic is sinking. Like, it's like, the guy who rang the bell really upset me. He was ringing it really loud and he was yelling at us, iceberg, iceberg. But like, it just hurt my feelings. I don't understand. And it's like, and you know what? Someone complained there weren't enough lifeboats. And I just, that's really where we are.
Yeah. It's just a bummer.
It's a bummer.
Oh, my feelings.
Yeah, and
my feelings are so
cry
conflicted
about it
right now.
as people are screaming
Yeah.
and plunging to their death.
Yeah. I'm just gonna. I'm gonna. That part of the boat's higher, and it hasn't been in the water yet.
Yes.
So I think I'll hang out here, and I just kind of sit in my feelings for a little bit because I don't know how to deal with them. Do you feel any level? Is there any level of sort of sympathy there? And I know that's difficult because you don't want to give an inch to these individuals because they do make
Sympathy
decisions
for them.
But I mean, yeah, they've come up in this system that's indoctrinated them this way. So like is there any sort of is there any sort of sympathy when it comes to the fact of the system created them? They're adults now. They're making these decisions. They should be able to go out and find the truth on their own, and they seem unwilling to do so. But at the same time, there is a level in which they have been radicalized by the left starting at an early age. It's why Democrats have done what they've done to the public education system. So,
I mean, sympathy, no.
Maybe I'm choosing the wrong word.
I understand a little bit why, but the truth is in different groups will call the age of accountability age 13. We legalize adulthood at 18. Although, as my nephew said yesterday, you can, that whole trope, you can die for this country at 18, but you can't get a drink till you're 21.
Yep.
That like there are levels of maturity, and I do agree that we don't really probably fully mature mentally, like as a teacher who's studied child psychology, till maybe 25 or 30, till you're really dealing with the whole deck of cards.
Certainly
right?
the case with both of my boys, 19 and 24.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, like and so, but what I take issue with, which is fully them, is like in what. Like they drank their own Kool-Aid in the sense of, in what world would you think that you're prepared for leadership? Like, in what capacity did you possibly think that there's a woman on the park board who doesn't even know how to read numbers. In what world do you think you should be in charge of $1 billion budget? Like, that where thousands of people's jobs are on the line, not to mention, paving our streets and making sure that businesses can survive.
Look at what's happening with horny her in St. Paul.
Yeah,
I mean, again, she clearly was never fit to serve as a representative in the legislature, and clearly, based off of what we've seen so far, she seems entirely too juvenile to be the mayor of a city like St. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say this for myself, and I was unsuccessful in achieving the election certificate, but even other people that I know who won, or others who didn't get involved, it is extremely challenging to even run for office in these spaces. Not just fundraising, which the DFL caucus takeover, you lose out on that kind of those fundings, and all the unions have basically been captured inside of them with the communist takeover. I belong to two unions. I'm a big believer in the union's ability to organize, and I also have a ton of friends and union members who've told me that it's like they are not representing us anymore because they're trying to this, right? So there's extreme pressures in fundraising. Then you go through a personal gauntlet, just horrific personal attacks, and then it's physically exhausting to just run. So you have people who are, as you said, like brought up in these systems. They're grown by the system, and they're plucked because they're young. They're at least, moderately attractive in the 4 seconds that they're, between the ages of 22 and 27. and except for, well, I shouldn't say anything. And then they're just yes men. So the system incubates them, and anybody who wants to try to break outside of that, it is so hard.
Well, and they've had, and as you just laid out, Becca, talking with Becca Thompson, they've had ample opportunity all along the way to the position in which they were elected for to change their view, to find the truth, to realize that, you know, what they stand for and what they believe in is not going to be prosperous for the position of which they are running for. They have plenty of opportunities from that, you know, from that moment that they actually begin to enter politics. So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to them. Let's do this. I kept you to the end of the show. So
sorry.
No. It's been a great conversation. And what I want to do here is, as we begin to close things out, is I have a lot of comments that have come into the blaster line. I want to run through some of these, and then we'll wrap things up with Becca Thompson this morning here on the Jon Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
John, Mike from Minnetonka, this has been an absolutely incredible segment. Congratulations to both of you. But my beef is the left thinks that we have changed, as in the Republicans, and it's the Democrats that have changed dramatically. John Kennedy was their candidate and president in 1960. He wouldn't be allowed in the party today. Limited government, low tax, Catholic, pro-life. He'd be excommunicated from the Democratic Party.
We also had a comment that I want to share from a friend of the show, Callie Proctor. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yes.
Yeah, by the look on your face, you are. And so she wanted to comment on our conversation this morning here on the show.
Hi, John. This is Callie. Thanks for having Becca on. I love hearing her take. I think she is exactly right about how many secret moderates there are out there, and about how Trump is 100% the dividing line. A while back, I was talking with a friend who has since stopped speaking to me, and she was telling me how proud she was that she could be friends with people who are pro-life. So I asked, could you be friends with someone who voted for Trump? And the answer was absolutely not. So I think for a lot of people, Trump is not just like another politician. He's the moral, political, and ideological litmus test. You can disagree on, you know, whatever, abortion, taxes, but support for Trump is categorically disqualifying. So I think if, you know, conservatives want to build a broader coalition, then they'll probably have to recognize that for a large number of more persuadable people, Trump is not the bridge. He's 100% the barrier. So anyway, thanks. So glad to hear your show on again. Bye.
Well, and I want to add that it's not going to change when Trump is no longer in office. They're just going to move. They're going to move their target to whoever the next person is, to whether it's Marco Rubio, whether it's J.D. Vance, or whomever. It's just going to be the next individual that comes up in the place of President Donald Trump. This is the cycle that we're going to be in now.
Oh, absolutely, and just I appreciate that I was agreed with on that one, because that is 100% it, and that's why I just try to talk about again the numbers and the being able to make it viable, and per the prior. I just want to say this quickly with the council members about like sympathy and like being accountable.
Sure.
Like how, because I was thinking about this as you were talking. I was like, yeah, I should have said this. How far is too far to know that your policies don't work? And for me, it's that there literally are children being murdered in the streets, and I can't even tell you how many stories I know, and it's directly related to these terrible policies, and they won't turn around and say they were wrong. And to me, that's just right there. That to me, one is enough. Yeah.
Let's go to one more blaster from the blaster line this morning here on the Jon Justice Show.
John, I'm a boomer and in recovery for 45 years. I get tired of the boomers, and they're stuck in the 60s and everything else, and they've raised rationalization to a fine art, and they wonder why they're getting demented earlier because they can't think and they're stuck in the emotion.
Yeah. One of the friends of the show, and thank you to everybody who's left a comment this morning. And Becca Thompson, you will not be a stranger to this show, assuming that you'd like to come back at some point
I'd
in
love
time.
to.
We'll have to get you in on a Freedom Friday too. So
I don't even know what that
we'll
is.
We'll get you seated
I really
with
appreciate you having me on here.
A.K. Kamara and Max Reimer and the rest of our group. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you to the friend of the show, Sandy, and her friend who encouraged me to have you on the show today. And I think I enjoyed the segment as much as the listeners did. So thank you so much. And follow Becca_Thompson on X. Is it the same on TikTok as well?
I think so. I think I might have Becca Thompson 31 because I don't know. Thompson's kind of a common name, John.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why my real last name is Lojudice, but it's entirely too hard to say, so that's why I go by Justice. So Thank you for the time this morning. Tomorrow on the show, a gubernatorial endorsed candidate for the GOP, Kendall Qualls, will be joining us. A number of stories we did not get a chance to get to today, including the former DFL leader who got less than a year in jail for a fatal hit and run of a teen, the double standard on full display once again. And we'll dive into how Republican Senator Michael Holstrom, talking about something I support, it's just unfortunate we needed it all, launching a Sharia-free Minnesota caucus in the state legislature. Again, I fully support it. It's just unbelievable that we have to have a Sharia-free caucus at all. So, Becca, thanks again. Thank you to you for listening to the show this morning. If you missed any portion of today's broadcast, check out the podcast available on all podcast platforms, also on the MixLR app. If you want to watch the show that you might have missed, you can see the replay of the show on Facebook and YouTube at Center of the American Experiment, and my personal pages as well. We are back at it tomorrow at 6 a.m. Have yourself a fantastic rest of the day. And you know what? Let's go ahead and go out with a little Zima Fizz. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning. God bless. Bye.
He speaks through static waves at dawn, a voice that lingers when night is gone. Twin cities hum with stories spun. Jon Justice rides the rising sun. Zima Fizz in a plastic cup. Star Wars dreams keep lifting him up. Costco aisles is sacred ground where neon shadows spin around. Embark on journeys in the stars, a galaxy of hope and scars. With every word a world takes flight. Justice writes in the cosmic